The fat shopkeeper looked troubled. Young master, there is a first come first served rule. How can I chase those customers out? First come first served? I was the one who came first, okay? Do you want to chase them out or not? If you don't, I will have your shop smashed today. The fat shopkeeper's forehead was full of sweat. When he raised his head, he saw Yun Chujio, who was watching the show in front of the crowd. As if she saw her savior, she ran over. Miss, I reckon that you've seen it. Can you discuss it with me? I'll return the deposit to you and compensate you with an additional 5,000 upper-grade spirit stones. You can let this young master stay in the backyard. The fat shopkeeper felt that Yun Chujio was easier to talk to. He would rather lose money to avoid disaster. Shopkeeper, do you think that I'm a little girl who's easier to bully? The room that I've paid the deposit belongs to me. Why should I let it go? Yun Chujio looked at the fat shopkeeper and said with a smile that was not a smile. The fat shopkeeper was not able to say a word. He was indeed unreasonable in this matter, but that young master looked like a bully. What if he really smashed the inn? When Diao Shaoan's triangular-eyed follower heard Yun Chujio say so, cannot help but sarcastic voice. A spirit of the 4th level of waste, you have what qualifications and our young master on the same level? Not to mention the shopkeeper giving you an extra 5,000 spirit stones. Even if he doesn't give it to you, you still have to obediently make room for our young master. Yun Chujio didn't even look at the attendant but said to the fat shopkeeper, Shopkeeper, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but the most important thing in doing business is honesty. I've already paid the deposit, so there's absolutely no reason for you to push me out. As for those who want to cause trouble, we can't be afraid of things when we open our doors to do business. If a strong dragon doesn't suppress the local snake, what are you afraid of as a local? Could it be that the people of Thunder City are watching you being bullied and no one comes out to support justice? Are the people of Thunder City that cowardly? More than half of the people who were watching the show were local people. Upon hearing Yun Chujio's words, those who were related to the fat shopkeeper all shouted, That's right, bullying us locals in our Thunder City is too arrogant. Shopkeeper, you don't have to be afraid. At most we will help you take care of them. Those who were watching the show never thought that it was a big deal. Even some people who were not from Thunder City also jeered, That's right, that's right. Do you really think you are some kind of person? You actually came to Thunder City to be the king and the overlord. You really overestimate yourself. Seeing this, Diao Shaoyan could not help but glare at Yun Chujio viciously. Then he took out the sound transmission talisman and sent a message to someone. Then he waited with a cold smile on his face. Not long after, an old man came in from outside the crowd. Everyone was intimidated by the pressure on the old man. Some of them had low cultivation and even trembled slightly. This old man's spiritual power was really unfathomable. Second young master, what happened? The old man walked to Diao Shaoyan's side and asked respectfully. Diao Shaoyan curled his lips. These country bumpkins want to gang up on me. This stinky girl is the main culprit. It was all instigated by her. As soon as the old man appeared, Feng was on guard. He could not see the level of the old man's spiritual power, but there was one thing that was beyond doubt. The old man's spiritual power level must be much higher than his, at least at the 5th level of the spiritual void tier. The old man coldly glanced at the crowd that was watching the show. Those people couldn't help but step back. Although He Shi and the others' legs trembled slightly, they still stood behind Yun Chujio with gritted teeth and didn't step back. The old man looked at Yun Chujio again. When he saw that Yun Chujio's expression was normal, he couldn't help but be stunned. This little girl was only at the 4th level of the spiritual venerable tier. How could she withstand his pressure? It was really strange. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Before the old man could say anything, Yun Chujio said clearly, Senior, the matter is like this. I paid a deposit to reserve the backyard of this inn, and then this young master wanted to force the shopkeeper to kick me out, so I said something unconvinced. You seem to be a reasonable person. You wouldn't help your young master to bully the weak, would you? The old man frowned and looked at the fat shopkeeper. Is it really as this little girl said? The fat shopkeeper nodded desperately. Yes, it's absolutely true. How would I dare to deceive this young master? It's just that this young lady paid the deposit first. Diao Shaoyan's face was full of impatience. Why are you asking about all that nonsense? Hurry up and chase this stinky girl out. Don't tell me you want me to sleep on the streets. The old man frowned slightly and said to Yun Chujio, "Little girl, why don't you give me some face and change a place to live? Here are 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. Take it as a token of my appreciation." Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and weighed the strength of both parties. She had already asked In Feng in a low voice just now. Other than this old man's extremely high spiritual power, that young master was at the 4th level of the Lingxian realm. The 10 followers behind him mostly had spiritual power around the 7th level of the Lingxian realm. If they really fought, they really would not be able to beat him. Yun Chujio, this fellow had always been able to bend and stretch. Hearing the old man's words, she sighed. "All right, then on account of you, old master, the backyard will be given to you." Diao Xiaoyan pursed his lips. "I dare you not to refuse, trash." Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. It was not too late for little Gio to take revenge. "Let's wait and see." The fat shopkeeper apologized profusely and then returned Yun Chujio's 5,000 down payment to her. He also gave her an additional 5,000 spiritual stones. Although He Shi and the others were very uncomfortable, there was a huge difference in strength between them. They could only swallow their anger. However, where should they stay for the night? Just as He Shi and the others were thinking, they heard Yun Chujio say clearly, "Which guest is willing to vacate a few rooms for us? I'm willing to compensate you with 10 times the price." Money moved people's hearts. A few of them originally had 1 room each, so they decided to squeeze in 2 or 3 people. Anyway, it was only for 1 night, so they could make do with it. Therefore, very quickly Yun Chujio got the right to use the 5 upper rooms. Then she said to He Shi and the others with a faint smile, "See? This is the way of a rich family. They rely on the strong to bully the weak. Tsk, that's a nouveau riche. Pan Dien Zero Val." Calm, the people present were not fools, so they naturally knew that Yun Chujio's words had a hidden meaning. The old man's face was a little embarrassed. Seeing this, Diao Xiaoyan was about to ask his followers to make a move. The old man disapproved and whispered a few words. Diao Xiaoyan then brought his people into the backyard. Yun Chujio also brought He Shi and the others into the inn, and the onlookers also dispersed. And Feng followed Yun Chujio into the room and said in a low voice, "Miss Jiu, those people's spiritual power is not low, so they should be from the eastern continent. Don't provoke them again lest you attract trouble." Yun Chujio nodded. "Don't worry. I know what to do. That old man won't let Diao Xiaoyan mess around. We're still too weak. If the gigolo is here, I won't torture them to death." The two chatted for a while more before Feng returned to his room to rest. The next day the sky had just brightened. Almost everyone in the inn got up and headed to the Thunder Disaster Valley, afraid of missing the precious 4 hours. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Yun Chujio and the others naturally followed them to the Thunder Disaster Valley. Diao Xiaoyan yawned and said impatiently, "It's all my mother's fault. I said I wouldn't come, but she made me come. I'm suffering." The old man frowned slightly. One of the servants of Sanjayan said, "Second young master, Madam is also thinking for your sake. If the old madam knew that you came personally to look for the 7-leafed hollow grass, she would be very pleased. Haven't you always wanted to get Shishue by the old madam's side? Perhaps this time Madam will agree when she is happy." When Diao Xiaoyan heard Sanjayan's words, his eyes immediately revealed a lascivious look. "What you said makes sense. All of you pay attention. If you see anyone who picks the 7-leafed hollow grass, snatch it for me." Yun Chujio secretly curled her lips. Diao Xiaoyan was obviously a good-for-nothing. If he did not rely on his family, he would have been beaten to death hundreds of times. Thunder City was less than 100 li away from the Thunder Disaster Valley. In less than 2 hours, everyone had arrived outside the Thunder Disaster Valley. There were already many people waiting at the entrance of the valley. When they saw so many people coming over, their eyes revealed a look of vigilance. If they went inside for some high-level spirit herbs, they would inevitably have a fight. At this moment Yun Chujio's heart was bursting with joy. In her eyes, this Thunder Disaster Valley was simply an energy replenishment station. The entire valley was enveloped by lightning. Although the majority of it was only silver lightning, there were enough of it to allow Yun Chujio to break through. Everyone was eagerly waiting for the lightning to dissipate. They rubbed their fists and prepared to go in and search for high-grade spirit herbs. After 2 hours, the lightning that enveloped the Thunder Calamity Valley began to gradually weaken. First, the purple lightning disappeared. Then the silver lightning also began to dissipate. Finally, all of it dissipated. Actually, before the lightning had completely dissipated, many people had already rushed in to seize the opportunity. Yunchujia's heart was throbbing with pain. Fuck, you guys are all picking my spirit stones. Heaven and earth blessed these people that they couldn't find anything good, so they kept them for me. Heisher and the others saw that Yunchujio didn't go in but was muttering something. They were all dumbfounded. Heisher asked, "Miss, aren't we going in?" Pandin Zero Vel. "Come, of course we have to go in, but we just need to watch the show at the edge of the entrance to prevent blood from spilling out," Yunchujio said with a smile. Heisher and the others were even more confused. "Little ancestor, did we come all the way here just to watch the fun? Even if we picked a few spiritual herbs, it could be considered a harvest." Although Heisher and the others were puzzled, they could only listen to Yunchujia's arrangement. After entering the Thunder Disaster Valley, they looked up at the sky in boredom at the edge of the exit. The rest of them had gone into the depths of the valley to pick spiritual herbs. There was no fun to watch. "Little lunatic, when the lightning strikes again, bring Heisher and the others and wait for me outside the valley. I'll go out after I get some good stuff," Yunchujio said while blinking her eyes. And Feng nodded and didn't say anything. Heisher and the others, however, exploded. "Miss, what are you doing? Aren't you courting death? You'll be struck by lightning and turn into ashes." Yunchujio glanced at them and said faintly, "The lightning that can kill me hasn't been born yet. Your miss is much more abnormal than you think. Please be patient." It was the first time that Heisher and the others had said that they were perverted. Moreover, they had a smug expression on their faces. They were indeed perverted. 4 hours passed quickly. One after another, people walked over from the depths of the valley. Some of them looked happy while others sighed. Diao Xiaoyan and the others also walked over. They did not look worried. It seemed that they had not found the 7-leafed hollow grass. Yunchujio could not help but gloat in her heart. Damn it! It would be better if they could not find it. At this time, lightning started to appear sporadically. Everyone hurriedly ran out, afraid that they would be struck to death after a while. Yunchujio naturally could not stay inside suddenly. This guy pretended to be interested in a piece of worthless spiritual medicine and dawdled there. And Feng was very clear about Yunchujio's tricks, so he cooperated and put on an act. "Miss, 4 hours are almost up. You better hurry out." "No rush, no rush. We'll take a look again. You guys go out first. Don't be boisterous next to me." "It's annoying to hear that," Yunchujio said impatiently. And Feng pretended to be anxious and stamped his feet. However, Yunchujio kept urging them to hurry out. And Feng could only lead Heisher and the others to walk out, turning back 3 times with each step. Heisher and the others felt that if they did not know, they would definitely believe in Feng's performance. This person was also a genius. Seeing this, Diao Xiaoyan could not help but twitch his lips. This stupid girl was really courting death. It would be best if she was struck to death by lightning. At this moment, the lightning suddenly became heavy. Everyone rushed out. Yunchujio also stood up and followed behind them. Diao Xiaoyan saw that Yunchujio was not far from him, and a hint of viciousness flashed in his eyes. He gave a signal to the triangular-eyed attendant beside him. Panda novel. The triangular-eyed attendant nodded knowingly and gave Yunchujio a palm strike. San Jiaoyan. Yunchujio could completely dodge, but she felt that she could use this opportunity to stay in the valley, so she pretended to scream and flew more than 100 feet away before fainting on the ground. Diao Xiaoyan looked back and could not help but smile sinisterly. This was the consequence of offending this young master. The old man naturally saw the situation here. He paused for a moment and then continued to escort Diao Xiaoyan out. She was just a little girl from the Western continent. She died, so be it. The rest of the people followed the principle that it was better to have less trouble than more trouble. Naturally, no one went to save Yunchujio and allowed Yunchujio to faint there. As soon as everyone left the Thunder Disaster Valley, the Thunder Disaster Valley was once again enveloped by heavy lightning. Everyone sighed and then left one after another. And Feng and the others naturally had to put on a full show, so they asked anxiously, "Everyone, have you seen my lady?" Everyone's eyes flickered, afraid that they would offend Diao Xiaoyan, so they all said that they didn't know. San Jiaoyan's follower gloated, "That stupid girl tripped herself. She must have been struck by lightning." Heisher and the others immediately glared at him. If it were not for Enfeng pulling them, they would have gone up to San Jiaoyan and risked their lives. Enfeng could not help but sigh in his heart. The ninth miss really had some skills. These people had not followed her for long, but they were all very loyal. The old man glared at San Jiaoyan, then said to Enfeng, "Your miss tripped over herself and her head seems to have hit a stone. If you are worried, just go in and take a look." Enfeng cupped his fists at the old man, then said to Heisher and the others, "Wait here, I'll go in and take a look." Heisher and the others could no longer tell if Enfeng was acting or not. They nodded blankly and watched as Enfeng entered the Thunder Disaster Valley. In fact, the Thunder Disaster Valley's entrance was not too dense with lightning. If one's spiritual power was high enough, they could still escape unscathed if they entered for a short period of time. After Enfeng entered, he saw that Yun Chujio was skipping into the valley. Enfeng could not help but twitch the corners of his eyes. He knew that this little ancestor would be fine. Enfeng thought of an excuse and then retreated. Heisher and the others immediately surrounded him. "How is it? Where's Miss?" Enfeng let out a long sigh. "I didn't find Miss inside. Could it be that Miss has been hacked into ashes?" "What? It's over. It's over. If I knew this would happen, I would have tied Miss up." Heisher and the others saw Enfeng's concealed gaze and heaved a sigh of relief. However, regret was written all over their faces. Enfeng was silent for a moment before saying, "That's not right. Even if Miss was turned into ashes, the ring would not be turned into ashes. Miss might still be alive. We will wait here. Miss will definitely come out alive." Diao Xiaoyan pursed his lips. He reckoned that after the guard entered, he did not take a closer look to save his life. That was why he did not find the stinky girl's storage ring. That stinky girl must have been struck by lightning. Many people had the same thoughts as Diao Xiaoyan. They all thought that Yun Chujio must have been turned into ashes by the lightning. They could not help but secretly rejoice. Fortunately, they came out in time. Otherwise, things would have been bad. The crowd discussed for a while and then dispersed. Enfeng, Heisher and the others were the only ones waiting outside the valley entrance. At this time, Yun Chujio was having a lot of fun. The purple heavenly lightning kept striking her body while she kept searching for high-level spirit herbs. Although everyone had picked them, there were still many precious spiritual herbs in some hidden areas of the valley. This Thunder Disaster Valley was really magical. The lightning could kill people, but it would not strike the spiritual herbs on the ground. Many spiritual herbs that had gone extinct outside could be found here. Yun Chujio let out Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu so that they could absorb some of the power of lightning. Xiao Hanyo was struck until it burped continuously. He was not sure if it was an illusion, but it felt that after being struck, its body seemed to become lighter. Hence, it flapped its short wings and began to collide with the lightning. Seeing Xiao Hanyo doing this, Yun Chujio rolled her eyes. She took out a large copper basin from her storage ring and placed it on her head to absorb the silver lightning. Thus, the three perverts began to search for treasures while being struck by lightning. "Master, where do you think the lightning comes from? Why do you keep striking this place? Do you think there are any big treasures here?" Xiao Hanyo stared at her with his beam-like eyes. Yun Chujio's heart moved. Xiao Hei's words made sense. There wouldn't be lightning gathering here for no reason. Perhaps there really was something good. Yun Chujio observed for a moment and realized that the more she walked in, the more lightning gathered. Perhaps the secret was hidden in the innermost part. The moment this fellow thought about the incredible treasures inside, he immediately lost interest in those high-grade spirit herbs. He kept Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu into his spirit beast pouch and then quickly jumped into the innermost part. As he ran, this fellow felt that the large copper basin was too troublesome, so he also kept the large copper basin into his storage ring. The more Yun Chujio ran inside, the more the lightning struck her, as if it was trying to stop her from entering. Yun Chujio could not help but twitch her lips. "Want to stop me? Dream on. Pandian Zero Vel." This guy ran fiercely. She found that the deeper she went, the hotter it got. If she did not have the beads of the Guaichao, she might not even be able to breathe. Finally, she could see the end of the valley from afar. It was a cliff that was as smooth as a mirror. Although the lightning was very dense, it didn't strike the cliff. It seemed that the purpose of the lightning was to prevent people from approaching the cliff. Then what secrets were hidden inside the cliff? Yun Chujio's heart was pounding. A few words had appeared in her mind. Divine beast, divine weapon, treasure map, handsome man. Xiao Hanyo pursed her lips. The first three were okay, but what the hell was the last one? Handsome? If he was really handsome, the gigolo would definitely be jealous. At this moment, the heavenly lightning that fell from the sky was even denser, and almost all of them were purple. The purpose was obvious, and that was to stop Yun Chujio from approaching the stone wall. Yun Chujio did not take the thunder seriously at all. She hopped to the stone wall and felt the heat wave. He was even more puzzled. Why was the stone wall so hot? Could it be a volcano? Wasn't the volcano hundreds of kilometers away from here? Yun Chujio carefully observed the stone wall and did not find anything unusual. She used a rolling pin to knock it but did not find anything empty. It was really strange. Just as Yun Chujio was feeling puzzled, she noticed a small red dot in a corner of the stone wall. It might have sensed Yun Chujio's gaze, and that small red dot began to scuttle about inside the stone wall. Xiaohong was stunned. What the hell was this thing? Was it a demon beast or a spiritual plant? No matter what it was, she had to let it out first. This thing was probably afraid of heavenly lightning and would not dare to hurt her even if she let it out. Yun Chujio raised the rolling pin and started to smash the stone wall. The heavenly lightning was clearly anxious and it kept hacking at Yun Chujio, wishing that it could kill this guy. However, it was useless, so Yun Chujio smashed it even more happily. She didn't know what material this cliff was made of, but after Yun Chujio smashed it for a long time, she only managed to create a tiny crack. The guy blinked his eyes and retreated some distance away. Then he took out the superior grade sudden crack talisman from his storage ring and threw it at the cliff. With the sound of cracking, cracks began to appear on the cliff and some rocks began to fall off. Yun Chujio couldn't help but feel proud. Little guy, no matter how strong you are, I can still blow you up. Finally, after using up 2 sacks of the superior grade sudden crack talisman, a small hole appeared on the cliff. Yun Chujio moved closer to the hole and said slyly, "Little thing, you've been trapped here for a long time, right? Don't you want to go out and see the beautiful world? I'm the kindest person. I'm here to rescue. Come follow me. I'll definitely treat you well." The 4 in the spiritual beast bag looked at each other. The black-hearted master's old trick had started again. No one knew what was the unlucky thing this time. Xiaohong did not move when she heard Yun Chujio's words. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and continued to say, "There are already holes here. If you don't follow me when the heavenly lightning strikes, you will be dead." Xiaohong still did not respond. Yun Chujio was furious. "Damn it, don't do it the hard way. If you don't come out, I will blow up the entire cliff wall. Anyway, I still have dozens of sacks of burst talismans." She didn't know if Xiaohong was afraid or not, but she began to move towards the direction of the hole. Yun Chujio then realized that although Xiaohong looked small, it was actually because Xiaohong was in the depths of the stone wall. As it moved forward, its size became larger and larger. Yun Chujio was surprised to find that Xiaohong was actually a cluster of dancing flames. Yun Chujio could not help but wonder, could a flame even turn into a spirit? There were so many strange things in the immortal Yuan continent, but it was useless to keep this flame. If she had known it was useless, she would not have wasted her time. She might as well have dug out a few more high-grade spirit herbs. Just as Yun Chujio was regretting her decision, the cluster of flames suddenly rushed into Yun Chujio's forehead. Lai Yen. Yun Chujio immediately felt a burning pain in her spiritual sense. She quickly sat down and began to look inside. Inside Yun Chujio's spiritual sense, it was like a market. Countless weapon spirits were hidden inside. The owner was naturally Yun Chujio's primordial spirit, a mini Yun Chujio. NDNOVL at this moment, the flame was crazily burning Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. Those weapon spirits were obviously very afraid of the flame, so they all curled up in a corner. At this moment, the silver dragon, the weapon spirit of the rolling pin, rushed in. Seeing that the flame was burning Yun Chujio's spiritual sense, it immediately pounced on it. Unexpectedly, the power of the flame was extremely great. Not to mention biting the flame, the silver dragon felt that its body was about to be roasted. "Little flame, come back. I will deal with it." Yun Chujio realized that the silver dragon was not a match for the flame, so she asked the silver dragon to come back. At this moment, due to the intense pain caused by the burning of her spiritual sense, both Yun Chujio's body and primordial spirit showed a painful expression. The burning pain caused by the spiritual sense was several times more painful than when her body exploded. The flame clearly only had a shallow level of intelligence. It could not speak. As it shook proudly, it burned Yun Chujio's spiritual sense even more crazily. Yun Chujio felt that the flame should be struck by lightning, so she fired several purple lightning bolts at the flame. Sure enough, the flame trembled for a moment, but when it realized that Yun Chujio's purple lightning was not too strong, it continued to show off, shaking as it burned. Yun Chujio felt her head buzzing as if her entire mind had stopped, and she could not remember anything except the burning pain. She even had the feeling of giving up. As long as she gave up, she would no longer feel the pain and would no longer have to endure the burning pain. No, she definitely could not give up like this. Wasn't it just a bunch of flames? After 100 refinements, we will see who would be the one laughing in the end. I can subdue so many weapon spirits and I still can't subdue you, a broken flame. Yun Chujio's primordial spirit began to meditate with her legs crossed. No matter how the Qi-Ling burned, she did not move as if she was meditating. When the Qi-Ling saw this, it began to burn even more crazily. It felt that it would soon burn Yun Chujio's spiritual sense. As long as it burned this wretched girl to death, it could return to the cliff wall to cultivate. Sooner or later it would cultivate the great Tao. The little silver dragon and the other Qi-Ling were curled up in a corner. There was only one thought in their minds. It was over. It was dead for sure. However, as time passed, even though Yun Chujio's expression was very painful, Yun Chujio's spiritual sense did not burn to ashes as the Qi-Ling had expected. Instead, her sea of consciousness seemed to have expanded a little. The flame also noticed this change. It could not help but rush towards Yun Chujio's primordial spirit in a fluster. Wretched girl, if you can't burn your sea of consciousness, then burn your primordial spirit. Yun Chujio heard the little silver dragon's cry and opened her eyes. It was too late for her to hide. She subconsciously released a group of piglets with spirit energy towards the flame and stood up to hide. The little silver dragon and the Qi-Ling all felt that these piglets with spirit energy were useless. They were soon turned into roasted suckling pigs. The flame obviously thought so too. It did not take the little piglets of spirit energy seriously at all and continued to charge forward. However, it did not expect that the group of little piglets of spirit energy pounced on the flame and began to devour the flame. The flame kept trembling. It was obviously in great pain. Yun Chujio's eyes lit up. She had no choice but to release the little piglets of spirit energy. She did not expect it to have a miraculous effect. Hence, this fellow continued to release the pigs. Minions. Well done. Swallow this bastard flame and kill it. Yun Chujio saw that the little piggy was brave, so the little piggy regained its spirit and began to cheer for her. The artifact spirits also started to make noise. If Yun Chujio died, they would not be able to recover either. They naturally hoped that the little piggy could swallow the flame. After a full 10 hours, the little piggy with spiritual power finally finished swallowing the flame. However, Yun Chujio was not happy at all because the flame had been devoured by the little piglet. In other words, it had been devoured by her. The little piglet only felt that its primordial spirit was about to explode, and it wished that it could dive into the icy water. Just when Yun Chujio thought that her primordial spirit would explode, a cool aura came from her dantian, and Yun Chujio felt a little better. She knew that this was definitely the work of Go Weiba. Right now, she did not know whether she hated Go Weiba or was grateful to Go Weiba. Although Go Weiba had almost killed her before, it had saved her life time and time again. It was really entangled and she could not tell whether it was right or wrong. With the cool aura of Go Weiba, Yun Chujio's primordial spirit finally survived the burning of the flame. The flame was divided by the little piglet of spiritual power, and its spiritual intelligence naturally dissipated. Yun Chujio felt that there was nothing wrong with her spiritual sense, so she retreated. This guy stood up and felt that his right palm was a little hot. When he looked down, he could not help but be stunned. He saw the mark of a flame on his right palm. It was bright red like blood, very eye-catching. Yun Chujio was dumbfounded. But what was going on? Didn't she already kill the flame? Why did this damn thing appear on her palm? Yun Chujio gritted her teeth and used the large kitchen knife to cut her right palm. This guy thought that he would be able to pull out the flame just like that. Who would have thought that there was nothing? However, when the skin healed, the mark of the flame appeared again. Could it be that this thing had become a birthmark? Yun Chujio was a big-hearted person. Seeing that there was no way to get rid of it, she decided not to get rid of it. She even thought to herself that it would be great if the flame mark appeared on her forehead. It would definitely be beautiful. Xiao Hanyo was completely speechless. No one could be so heartless to this extent. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. She felt that the stone wall was so strong that it must be a good thing. Hence, she used the sudden rupture talisman to blast off a few pieces and stored them in her storage ring. At this moment, the sky became even darker. Other than the heavenly lightning from before, another large piece of dark cloud floated over. Wu Yun's expression changed. Yun Chujio pursed her lips. Could it be that the flame was really something good? So that old bastard Tiandao sent Wu Yun to strike me? Come, come, let the heavenly lightning come more fiercely. Yun Chujio's prediction was right. Wu Yun naturally wouldn't float over for no reason. It was precisely to strike her. Yun Chujio raised her head to take a look. This Wu Yun looked quite familiar. So it was the old familiar Yun. "Oh, little Yun, we meet again. What a coincidence." Yun Chujio smiled and waved her claws at Wu Yun. Wu Yun had rejected this mission in his heart, but he had no choice but to come. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, he unhappily struck several purple lightning bolts at Yun Chujio. Good strike. Good strike. So good. Come on, hit me as much as you want. Let's hurt each other as much as we want. Yun Chujio raised her head and said with a smile. Wu Yun was already numbed by this fellow's anger. He kept hacking downwards. No matter what, he had to finish the power of lightning. Yun Chujio acted as if nothing had happened. She even had the leisure to search for spirit herbs everywhere. Moreover, she had Xiao Hanyo and Xiao Mogu help to find high-grade spirit herbs. He wanted to fight for a nest for it. Since Xiao Hanyo had been killed by her, this Thunder Disaster Valley might soon become an ordinary valley. When that time came, it would be convenient for others, so it was better to pick more. When this guy was searching for high-level spiritual herbs while being struck by lightning, he found a few herbs growing in a crack in the stone. Each herb only had 7 sawtooth-shaped leaves with light pink flowers on the top. Yun Chujio's eyes couldn't help but light up. Wasn't this the 7-leaf hollow grass that Diao Xiaoyan and the others were looking for? Hey, what a blessed person. Yun Chujio used her body to protect the medicinal herbs. Then she took out a small shovel and carefully put the 7-leafed hollow grass into her storage ring. After sweeping the area, she found that there were no fish that had fallen into the net. Then she happily hopped toward the entrance of the valley. And Feng and the others were the only ones left outside the valley. The others had left a long time ago. After Yun Chujio left the valley, the dark clouds in the sky also floated out and continued to attack Yun Chujio. Miss, be careful. He Shi and the others saw so many bolts of lightning striking Yun Chujio's body. They were so scared that they closed their eyes. It was over. Miss would definitely be turned into ashes. However, when they opened their eyes again, they saw that Yun Chujio was not only fine, she even pointed at the dark clouds in the sky and said, "Little Yun Yun, that's enough. I still have things to do, I don't have time to play with you." Play with it? Who the fuck needs you to play with it? This Yun is working, do you understand? This is a very serious matter. Woo, it's useless to be serious. This damn little pervert, why can't he be hacked to death? The dark clouds in the sky wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He Shi and the others were dumbfounded. Oh god, the little ancestor was actually unharmed after being struck by so many bolts of lightning. This was too abnormal. Wu Yun in the sky was also like a broken pot that had been broken. All of the remaining power of the lightning was struck down toward the ground, regardless of whether it struck Yun Chujio or not. Wu Yun trembled and floated away. Since the lightning had already been struck, the little abnormal did not have to depend on me even if he did not die. If he had the ability, let other clouds strike him. I do not want to see this little abnormal anymore. My head hurts. Yun Chujio waved her claws at Wu Yun and said, "Little Yun Yun, you are welcome to come and play with me frequently. I even wrote a song for you. Listen carefully. My house's door is always open and my embrace is waiting for you. Little Jio welcomes you and shares your breath under the sun." Wu Yun floated even faster. Oh god, quickly save me. I met a little lunatic. Save me. Yun Chujio saw Wu Yun drifting away as if he was fleeing for his life. She could not help but twitch her lips. Bah. Other than me, who else can make you do this without scolding you? You really don't know how to appreciate favors. He Shi and the others felt that their worldview had been refreshed. They were all stunned like wooden stakes. If they did not see wrongly, then Wu Yun should have fled in a panic, right? He seemed to have been scolded by the little ancestor and ran away. The Board of Immortals. That was Wu Yun who could bring down heavenly thunder. He was actually so cowardly. The 6 of them were incomparably glad of their decision back then. If they were to go against the little ancestor, there would only be one outcome, and that would be death. A freak who could make Wu Yun run away in anger, what a terrifying existence that was. At this moment, a loud sound came from within the Thunder Tribulation Valley and everyone was shocked. Yun Chujio touched her chin. Something must have happened to the stone wall. Perhaps it had sunk into the ground. Don't just stand there. I think the name of the Thunder Disaster Valley will be changed soon. Let's run away from the scene of the crime, Yun Chujio said sneakily. He Shi and the others didn't have enough brains now, so they were like puppets. They followed Yun Chujio's instructions and summoned their flying spirit tools. After boarding the flying spirit tools, they quickly left the Thunder Disaster Valley. After 4 hours, He Shi and the others finally realized why the Thunder Disaster Valley would change its name. Then there would definitely be no more heavenly lightning strikes. Why would there be no more heavenly lightning strikes? Could it be that there was something inside that was stolen by the little ancestor? He Shi and the others inexplicably thought of Luo Pingxing and Elder Zhao Er's storage rings. This greedy little ancestor might have stolen something from them again. Oh God, don't say anything else. Hurry up. The next morning, the lightning in the Thunder Disaster Valley had already begun to dissipate. The purple lightning had completely disappeared. Only scattered silver lightning would occasionally strike. Soon someone noticed something strange here. Everyone rushed into the Thunder Disaster Valley because they felt that this was a great opportunity to make a fortune. Diao Xiaoyan and the others were no exception. After hearing the news, they rushed over in a hurry and began to enter the Thunder Disaster Valley to look for the 7-leaf hollow grass. These people were quickly disappointed because they found that there were almost no traces of heaven-grade herbs in the valley. Even earth-grade herbs were few and far between. That was not right. Although they had come in to collect a wave of herbs before, they did not go too deep. Logically speaking, there should be many high-grade spirit herbs in the depths of the valley. At this time, someone had already reached the end of the valley and found that the ground was full of gravel. It was obviously caused by the collapse of the cliff. Could it be that something had happened in the valley before? Everyone was puzzled. Someone said, "Oh right, when we left yesterday the little girl's subordinates did not leave. They have been guarding outside the valley. Why didn't we see them today? Perhaps they can know some details." They naturally wasted their efforts. After asking around, they did not find any trace of Yun Chujio and the others. The old man who followed Diao Xiaoyan frowned. Although he did not have any evidence, he felt that the change in Thunder Disaster Valley had something to do with that little girl. However, now that she had disappeared, there was no way to find out the reason, so everyone could only disperse. At this time, Yun Chujio was already tens of thousands of miles away from Thunder Disaster Valley. This guy felt that she was basically safe, so he finally relaxed. "Little madman, come here for a moment." Yun Chujio called Feng into her room. Feng was very puzzled. After entering, he asked, "Miss Jiu, what are your orders?" Yun Chujio stretched out her right hand and said with a smile, "Do you think this decoration of mine looks good?" Feng looked down and saw a bright red flame mark on Yun Chujio's fair palm, which was very eye-catching. Feng thought that Yun Chujio had drawn it herself, so he complimented her. "Miss Jiu, your decoration is so beautiful and lifelike. I thought there was really a flame mark in your palm." Yun Chujio sighed. "Alas, I didn't draw it. This thing also came uninvited. Let me tell you, when I entered the valley," Yun Chujio told him about the little flame and then said, "Little lunatic, what do you think that little flame is? What's with my mark?" Feng scratched his head. "Miss Jiu, I don't know as much as you do. How would I know if you don't know? But I think that since this thing is sealed in the stone wall and protected by the heavenly lightning, it must be a great thing." Yun Chujio heard this and beamed with joy. "Of course it's a good thing. Otherwise, that old bastard Tiandao wouldn't have come to strike me. When I see a gigolo one day, I'll ask him again. Maybe he'll know." The corner of Feng's eyes twitched. Now, unless Ninth Miss had a request, she would only be called a Prince Charming. Otherwise, she would only be called a gigolo. It was really turning over a new leaf. "Ninth Miss, what level is your spiritual power now?" Pan de N0VL. It's okay. I've broken through 3 levels and now am at the 4th level of the Lingxian realm. I'm still too weak. After some time, we'll find another place to go for a trial, Yun Chujio said unhappily. And Feng was already numb from the blow. He felt that if he did not have any fortuitous encounters, the 9th miss, this pervert, would probably catch up to him very soon. When that time came, he did not know who would protect whom. It was too depressing for a dark guard to live up to his level. Woo did he work hard too? But he was already a monster when he met 1 or 2 of them. He simply couldn't live anymore. And Feng's words reminded Yun Chujio that this guy had secretly adjusted his spiritual power level to the 6th level of the Supreme Spirit Realm. The journey was smooth. Half a month later, the flying spiritual device arrived in Fengli City. Yun Chujio hopped over to see Mo shouting, "Grandfather, I'm back?" Mo shouting was naturally happy to see Yun Chujio return safely and that Yun Chujio's spiritual power had broken through again. After chatting for a while, Mo shouting asked, "How was your inspection of the southernmost land? Is there a need for trade?" Yun Chujio was so focused on treasure hunting that she did not have time to inspect the market. However, she could easily lie and simply found a few excuses to avoid the issue. Mo shouting didn't have much hope, so he didn't take it to heart. After chatting for a while, he told Yun Chujio to go back and rest. Yun Chujio had just showered and was about to take a good afternoon nap when Qing Lu reported, "Miss, the master wants you to go to the study room." Yun Chujio couldn't help but feel confused. It seemed like there was something urgent. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come back and called her over. After Yun Chujio arrived at Mo Xiating's study room, she saw Mo Xiating's face lit up with joy. Amidst his excitement, there was a hint of nervousness. She couldn't help but wonder what had happened. "Grandfather, are you looking for me?" "Feng Chao, I originally wanted you to come back tomorrow, but grandfather is simply too happy." "Look, what are these?" Mo shouting picked up the 2 red invitations on the table and handed them to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio took the red invitation card and looked at it. She immediately understood why Mo shouting was so excited. The invitation card was sent by the Mo family. The content was, "The young master of the Mo family will be getting married on the 6th of next month. Mo shouting and Yun Chujio will be invited to attend the ceremony. Feng Chao, it's all thanks to you. If you didn't want to do business with the Mo family, why would the Mo family invite the both of us to attend the ceremony? When I was young, I followed my father to the Eastern continent once. The spiritual energy in the Eastern continent is much richer than in the Western continent, and the spiritual power of the people there is generally higher than in the Western continent," Mo shouting said excitedly. Yun Chujio couldn't help but purse her lips. The old fox would probably be so excited that he wouldn't fall asleep for a few days. Looking at how successful he was, it was embarrassing. Mo shouting talked for a while before he realized that he had lost his composure. He cleared his throat and said, "Feng Chao, I've just thought about it. You are good in every aspect, but you are lacking in etiquette. Let me help you find someone to teach you." Yun Chujio couldn't help but laugh. This old fox was quite meticulous. He even thought of this. The old fox chuckled, "Grandfather, I know all about etiquette. It's just that I don't usually show it. If you don't believe me, I can walk a few steps for you." Mo shouting naturally did not believe Yun Chujio's words. He felt that Yun Chujio was just bragging, but he didn't want to reject her outright. So he said perfunctorily, "Then walk for a while and let me take a look." Yun Chujio nodded and hopped to the door. Mo shouting couldn't help but twitch his eyes. How could she be so polite? Stop joking. At this moment, Yun Chujio slowly turned around. Her entire aura suddenly changed, as if she wasn't the same person as the little girl from before. Her every move was calm and noble. It was as if she had suddenly turned from Goei Butsao into a beautiful peony. Mo shouting was stunned. He had originally thought that her mother and Goei Butsao were just a figment of her imagination, and the difference in temperament was simply too great. But from the looks of it, they were indeed mother and daughter. Their family background was completely revealed. Not to mention the Mo family, even the Yi family couldn't find a single flaw in their demeanor. Yun Chujio saw Mo Xiating's stunned expression and couldn't help but smile playfully. "Grandfather, how was it? I passed the test, right? Actually, I understand all of this, but it's so tiring to carry it around. It's better for a monkey like me to be at ease." Mo shouting came back to his senses and nodded before saying, When you arrive at the Mo family home, you need to be a little more humble. Otherwise, if your limelight surpasses the girls from my family, I'm afraid they'll do you a disservice. Yoon Chujio nodded. Grandfather, you're still thoughtful. Have a point. Why don't I just act like a monkey and forget about it? Otherwise, if I'm young and beautiful and know how to do business, won't they die of jealousy? It's a good opportunity to leave a flaw in their appearance so they can find a sense of superiority. Mo Ziyading's eyes twitched as he thought for a moment. He felt that Yoon Chujio's words made sense. All right, then well, do as you say. But when the time comes, we need to control ourselves and not cause any trouble. If you cause trouble, grandfather won't be able to protect you. Grandfather, don't worry, I will be careful. Oh right, grandfather, I'm afraid we will have to spend a lot of money on this trip. In addition to the wedding gifts, we also have to prepare gifts for each room. Moreover, the quality of the gifts cannot be too low. Otherwise, we might as well not give them. Such a waste. Yoon Chujio pouted and said. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Mo shouting teased, you little girl, you are such an iron rooster. The money needed to be spent naturally had to be spent. As for the gifts, you don't have to worry about them. Grandfather will ask Manager Lu about my family's preferences and then make some preparations. Hee hee, grandfather, this is our hard-earned money. Of course, our hearts will ache for it. But this is my first time going. I'm still a junior. I wonder if my family will give me some gifts, Yoon Chujio said as she blinked her eyes. Mo shouting immediately remembered what had happened when Yoon Chujio first arrived at the Mo residence. His heart trembled. Fangchao, I'm not a place where you can mess around. Don't mess around when the time comes. Grandfather, look at what you said. I'm not a fool. Of course I won't mess around. Don't worry. If you're fine, I'll make a trip to grandmother's. I bought her some specialty products from the road, Yoon Chujio said with a smile. Mo shouting sighed in relief when he heard Yoon Chujio's words. He waved his hand to signal for Yoon Chujio to leave. Yoon Chujio hopped into the main courtyard. Inside, Wu Shi and Yo Shi were chatting with old Madame Lu. Grandmother, I've come to see you. Did you miss me? 72 filial granddaughters came online. Seeing Yoon Chujio hop in, old Madame Lu raised her head with a smile. You naughty monkey, you've been gone for so long. You're finally willing to come back. Grandmother, look at what you said. Even if I'm willing to part with other things, I can't bear to part with you, grandmother. If it weren't for the fact that I'm afraid of being impolite and travel-worn, I would have come to see you directly just now. Grandmother, these are the food I brought for you. I personally picked them out. Please try them. First aunt, third aunt, come and try them too. Yoon Chujio took out some food she bought on the way from her storage ring and let everyone try them. Wu Shi said with a hint of flattery, Fangchao, this child is not only capable but also filial. No wonder mother dotes on her. Lady Anayu also echoed, what sister-in-law said makes sense. Fangchao, this child is really a good girl, that is 1 in 10,000. Pandian 0 Velhum. Yoon Chujio could not help but laugh. Did Wu Shi and Lady Nyo drink honey this morning or something? Although they usually tried to curry favor with her, they were not so explicit. They probably had other plans, right? As expected. Wu Shi changed the topic as she spoke. Mother, Fangchao is already 18 this year. Should we consider marriage? My mother's nephew is 3 years older than Fangchao and has a dignified appearance. My mother's sister-in-law has also fallen in love with Fangchao. You see, why don't we let them come over and have a good look at each other? Hearing Wu Shi's words, Madame Anu quickly said, Mother, my nephew and Fangchao are about the same age and their cultivation aptitude is quite good. Why don't we ask my sister-in-law and nephew to come over as well? Have a good look at each other? Yoon Chujio was drinking tea when she heard Wu Shi and Madame Nyo's words. She almost burst out laughing. These two people really had a good plan. Were they planning to marry me and indirectly take control of the Mo family? They were really simple fools. Old Madame Lu threw the teacup on the ground in anger. Two idiots whose hearts have been clouded by lard. Are those two things from your family worthy of the fragrant grass? Don't think that the old woman doesn't know about your thoughts. Let me tell you, you should just give up on that thought. Wu Shi and Yo Shi were scolded like dogs. Although they admitted their mistakes, they sneered in their hearts. Humph, the old woman said it nicely. She probably wanted to keep the fragrant grass for her family. What a good plan. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. After a while, Wu Shi and Yo Shi found an excuse to leave with dirty faces. Old Madame Lu rambled on for a while, then she sighed and said, Feng Chao, although your aunt and third aunt didn't choose the right people, what they said makes sense. You are already 18 years old, it's time to consider marriage. Grandmother, I'm not going to marry. I want to stay with you and grandfather. Yun Chujio squeezed out 2 blushes on her face and said coquettishly, Yo, you naughty monkey, you still have time to be embarrassed? There's nothing to be embarrassed about for a man to marry his daughter. Your great-uncle's grandson is the same age as you and I watched him grow up. How about grandmother let you meet him one day? Old Lady Lu said jokingly. The girl from Feng Chao was like a money tree. Marrying her was the same as marrying a treasure trove. She couldn't let anyone get away with it. Grandmother, I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm going back. Yun Chujio pretended to be shy and ran out. Old Madame Lu felt that Yun Chujio was shy. She smiled and shook her head, ready to talk to Mo, shouting about this. Master, that old fart is really going to marry you off to her family. What are you going to do? Xiao Hanio asked worriedly. Don't worry. The old fox won't agree. He can't wait for me to never get married. Yun Chujio said nonchalantly. As long as Mo shouting didn't agree, it was useless for old Madame Lu and Mo shouting to have fun. As expected, when old Madame Lu mentioned the matter to Mo shouting that night, Mo shouting scolded her and warned her, I have my own arrangements for Feng Chao's marriage. Don't get involved. Old Madame Lu was scolded like a chicken in a nest, so she vented her anger on Wu Shi and Yo Shi. The next day when the 2 of them came to pay their respects, they found an excuse to scold them. Due to the distance between the eastern and western continents, although the official day was only the 6th of the next month, Mo shouting and Yun Chujio left with their guards in just 2 days. Of course, Manager Lu was also with them. Manager Lu was very attentive throughout the journey. Yun Chujio stared at him with a faint smile and said, Manager Lu, this is your territory on the eastern continent. Do you have any tricks up your sleeve to get back at me? Manager Lu was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. He shook his head like a rattle drum. Miss Feng Chao, even if I had 100 guts, I wouldn't dare to be disrespectful to you. Don't worry, when we arrive at the eastern continent, as long as you order me to do something, I will definitely do it beautifully for you. At least you are tactful. To tell you the truth, although I am not familiar with the eastern continent, wanting to kill you is as easy as flipping a hand. Yun Chujio said with a smile. In the eyes of Manager Lu, Yun Chujio's smile was the sneer of a devil. She swore an oath to express her loyalty. Alright, I was just joking with you. These are small gifts for this month. You can keep them to buy tea. Yun Chujio said as she handed over 2 million high-grade spirit stones to Manager Lu. Manager Lu accepted the benefits and became even more attentive. Even the guards like He Shi were taken good care of. Mo shouting sighed in his heart. Feng Chao's slap was indeed effective. Half a month later, the flying spiritual device arrived at the only land border between the eastern and western continents. The guards from the various major powers of the eastern continent set up a checkpoint here. No matter who they were, they had to go through an identity check before walking across the border. Under normal circumstances, people from the western continent were not allowed to enter the eastern continent. However, there were 2 special exceptions. One was that once a person's spiritual power reached the spiritual void realm, they would gain the status of a resident of the eastern continent and would be able to freely travel between the eastern and western continents. The other was that if a third-class family from the eastern continent sent out an invitation, the person invited would be granted a temporary pass. The duration of a temporary pass and the number of slots were related to the family's level. For example, the Mo family was only a third-grade family, so Mo Xiaoting's temporary pass only had a 2-month period and only had 2 slots. He Shi and the others were not qualified to receive a temporary pass, so they had no choice but to wait near the border according to Mo Xiaoting's arrangements. Meanwhile, Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio, accompanied by Manager Lu, successfully obtained a temporary pass and set foot on the East continent. And Feng had managed to break through to the spiritual void realm a few days ago. Otherwise Yun Chujio would have been left with nothing. And Feng naturally did not travel with them. Instead he obtained the identity of a resident of the Eastern Continent the next day and swaggered into the Eastern Continent. After Yun Chujio and the others passed the border inspection, they boarded the flying spiritual device and headed towards the Mo family's home, Fuhu City. Yun Chujio looked out of the flying spiritual device's window and felt that there wasn't much difference between the Eastern Continent and the Western Continent. The only difference was that the spiritual energy was slightly stronger. However, this didn't matter to her at all. Mo shouting couldn't hide his excitement as his hands began to tremble. He had finally set foot on the Eastern Continent once again. It would be even better if he could become a resident of the Eastern Continent in the future. If he wanted to become a resident of the Eastern Continent, there wasn't only one path for him to become a resident of Lingshu. There was another path. As Mo Xiaoting's branch was a branch of the Mo family, as long as the Mo family agreed to include the branch in their own family and pay a huge sum of money to the Eastern Continent Alliance, Mo Xiaoting's branch would be able to obtain the status of a resident of the Eastern Continent. For Mo Xiaoting, the huge sum of money wasn't a problem. After all, the Mo family was extremely rich. But how to get the Mo family to agree to include the branch in their own family was a difficult problem. So he could only take a long time to think about it. After another 8 days, the flying spirit tool finally arrived at Fuhu City. After everyone got off the flying spirit tool, they walked into Fuhu City. Fuhu City was very lively. People came and went on the streets. It was a prosperous scene. Yun Chujio could not help but sigh. The spiritual power level of this Eastern Continent was indeed much higher than that of the Western Continent. Only a few people on the streets were at the level of Spirit Paragon, and the vast majority were at the level of Ling Shan or even higher. Manager Lu, what is the spiritual power level of people my age in the Eastern Continent? Yun Chujio asked Manager Lu in a low voice. This is not very unified. Still depends on the talent in the family. The small families are around the 8th level of the spiritual venerable realm, the 3rd-class families are around the 1st level of the spiritual profound realm, the 2nd-class families are around the 3rd level of the spiritual profound realm, and the 1st-class families are around the 5th level of the spiritual profound realm. If it were those super sects, they would be around the 7th level of the spiritual profound realm. If it were those prodigies, some of them would already be at the 1st level of the spiritual void realm. Manager Lu was very well behaved now. He simply said whatever he knew. Yun Chujio nodded. The gap was still very big. He had to continue working hard. This guy's attention was quickly attracted by the snack shop by the roadside. My goodness, the Eastern Continent was indeed better than the Western Continent. There were many things in this snack shop that she had never seen before. Manager Lu felt that this was a good opportunity to curry favor with Yun Chujio, so he immediately ordered people to buy a bunch of snacks for Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio looked at Manager Lu with appreciation. Manager Lu immediately felt that the sky had turned blue and the clouds had turned white. The little devil probably wouldn't cause any trouble for a while. The Mo family was the biggest family in Fuhu City. They occupied a total of 2 streets. Manager Lu brought Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio to the 5th house of the Mo family, the 5th house that Mo Shouting had been in contact with. Manager Lu was also from the 5th house, so he was naturally familiar with the area. He brought Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio to wait at the front door before sending someone in to report. After a while, a man who looked like a housekeeper walked over. The man chatted with Manager Lu for a while, but he did not even look at Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio. It wasn't until Manager Lu stopped him from talking that he asked, "Housekeeper Zhu, what did 5th elder say?" The 5th elder said that he was getting old and was afraid that he would be sad after meeting them, so he decided to not meet them for the time being. "Let's meet again on the day of the wedding," Housekeeper Zhu said arrogantly. Manager Lu could only ask, "What about the other masters of the 5th house? Where do the 4th master and Miss Feng Tao live?" Only then did Housekeeper Zhu glance at Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio with a fake smile. He said, "The other masters are also very busy. How would they have the time to see them? Our 5th house has a lot of servants' rooms. You can just find 2 rooms for them to live in." Mo Xiaoting's face was ashen. Although he was mentally prepared and felt that he would be treated badly by his own family, he was being too harsh. Manager Lu caught a glimpse of the smile on Yun Chujio's face and his heart skipped a beat. He subconsciously took a few steps back. he felt that housekeeper Zhu was in deep trouble. As expected, Yun Chujio took 2 steps forward. Are you the housekeeper of the 5th house? Housekeeper Zhu thought Yun Chujio was giving him some benefits. He couldn't help but curl his lips. That's right, I am the housekeeper of the 5th house. I don't like things from the Western continent. You don't have to waste your efforts. This thing is worlds apart. The people of the Western continent are inferior. Although I'm a slave, but also, Housekeeper Zhu's words were interrupted by 2 loud slaps. Housekeeper Zhu's face immediately swelled up, and even the back of his molars were slapped. Housekeeper Zhu was stunned by the beating. He never dreamed that a little girl from the Western continent would actually dare to hit him. Although he was the housekeeper of the 5th branch, how could he not be better than these lowly people? You little bitch, how dare you hit me? Men, arrest this bitch. Housekeeper Zhu said fiercely as he covered his face. Manager Liu's mouth twitched. As expected, he knew that the little devil would not be bullied like this. But he had just arrived and had already beaten up the housekeeper of the 5th branch. How was he going to end things now? Although Enchanting felt that Yun Chujio's 2 slaps were too good for him, he still blamed Yun Chujio. He didn't have to hit her to express his dissatisfaction. But what was he going to do now that the situation had escalated? A few guards at the door heard housekeeper Zhu's words and surrounded Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio sneered, "If any one of you dares to touch me today, I will make their head fall to the ground. If you don't believe me, let's give it a try." Although the guards thought that Yun Chujio was talking big, they hesitated for a moment. No matter what, this little girl was the daughter of a branch. If they really started to fight, the higher-ups might really blame her. Manager Lu quickly tried to smooth things over. "Brothers, this is all a misunderstanding. Don't make a move yet." Housekeeper Zhu shouted in exasperation, "Do you listen to this wretched girl or to me? Capture her for me. If the masters blame me, I will bear the responsibility." As soon as housekeeper Zhu finished speaking, he felt a chill on his neck. A cold voice came from behind him. "Dog slave, is this how your own family treats their guests? Is this the intention of the masters, or did you make the decision on your own?" Almost everyone present did not see how Yun Chujio moved. In the blink of an eye, Yun Chujio had placed a large kitchen knife on housekeeper Zhu's neck. On one hand, Manager Lu was a little worried that the matter would blow up. On the other hand, he felt a strange balance in his heart. Back then, the little devil had also used a large kitchen knife to threaten him. Now he wanted to let housekeeper Zhu have a taste of it. Who did he think he was? The little devil can't kill you. The guards of the 5th house were all dumbfounded and shocked. This Miss Feng Chao from the branch was too fierce. She had used a large kitchen knife at the slightest disagreement. Luckily they hadn't attacked her just now. Otherwise she might have really killed them. Housekeeper Zhu was both angry and afraid. The cold blade of the large kitchen knife was only a little bit away from his neck. As long as Yun Chujio used a little bit of force, his head would be removed. You, if you kill me, 5th elder will not forgive you. 4th master, are you going to let her do as she pleases? Housekeeper Zhu yelled at Enchanting. Enchanting couldn't help but sneer. Now he remembered that he was the 4th master. He had just asked them to stay in the guest room. Although Enchanting did not agree with Yun Chujio's recklessness, since things had come to this, he naturally would not speak up for housekeeper Zhu. So he simply looked at housekeeper Zhu coldly and did not say a word. Yun Chujio's hand tightened slightly and housekeeper Zhu's neck was cut open. Fresh blood oozed out. "Slave dog, if you don't answer me who came up with the idea of letting my grandfather and I stay in the guest room, I will continue cutting. Let's play a game. How about I cut a few more times before you die?" Housekeeper Zhu was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. "Bet a few times? Fuck, killing me with a few times, isn't it up to you to decide?" Such a good-looking grudge between the rich and powerful, of course there would be a lot of onlookers. At this time, there were already many people gathered outside the 5th room to watch the show. Pandian Zero Vel. Calm, someone jeered. "I'll bet 1 time. I'll bet 3 times. I'll bet 5 times. When housekeeper Zhu heard the crowd jeering, he became even more exasperated. "Shut the fuck up. If anyone dares to talk nonsense again, I'll kill him." When the crowd heard housekeeper Zhu's words, no one dared to spout nonsense anymore. The Mo family was too powerful and they could not afford to offend them. However, these people immediately sided with Yun Chujie's side. Housekeeper Zhu was so arrogant and domineering, he deserved to be punished. It would be best if this young lady killed him directly. Yun Chujio exerted more force and another wound appeared on Housekeeper Zhu's neck. Speak. Who came up with the idea of letting my grandfather and I stay in the room? Housekeeper Zhu couldn't take it anymore. No matter what, his life was more important, so he said, "It's 5, you dog slave. How dare you treat younger brother Xiao Ting and the Feng Chao girl so slowly? You really deserve to die." An old man walked out from the courtyard and shouted angrily at Housekeeper Zhu. Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. Did he see that the matter had blown up and abandoned his pawn to protect the cart? Today's act was probably to put her and the old fox in their place. The Mahist family was really very interesting. After the old man reprimanded Housekeeper Zhu, he walked over to Mo Xiaoting and smiled. "This must be brother Xiaoting from Guangshuanji, right? I'm Mo Xiaoan from the 5th branch. I'm a few years older than you. You must have been tired from the journey. Come with me to get some rest." Although Mo Xiaoan said these words with a smile, his smile was extremely fake. The smile did not reach his eyes. Mo Xiaoting was a wily old fox, so he could see everything clearly. Just as he was hesitating whether he should jump down the mountain or not, Yun Chujio suddenly howled, "Grandfather and you have to make a decision for your niece. Housekeeper Zhu has bullied grandfather and me so badly. If it wasn't for our strong endurance, we would have been angered to death." Housekeeper Zhu was stunned. Mo Xiaoan was stunned. The onlookers were also stunned. "Oh God. NDNOVL, this was probably how it was to lie through your teeth, right?" Housekeeper Zhu's face was as swollen as a pig's head, and his neck was still bleeding. Who was the one who was in such a miserable state? Yun Chujio continued, "Grandfather, and when you saw Housekeeper Zhu like this, you probably thought I was lying. Yes, I admit that I touched him a few times in anger, but the psychological trauma he caused to my grandfather and me cannot be described with words. It took my grandfather and I more than 20 days to travel hundreds of thousands of miles to our own home. In the end, Housekeeper Zhu told us that 5th great-grandfather did not want to see us, and the other masters did not have the time to pay attention to us. They even let us stay in the guest room. This is intolerable. Even if uncle could tolerate it, aunt could not tolerate it. This is too much of a bully. We came here with a fire burning in our hearts. Now it's time to pull out the cold. Grandfather, are you cold? I'm so cold that I'm shivering." As Yun Chujio spoke, she moved closer to Mo Xiaoting and shivered as if she was serious. Housekeeper Zhu was so angry that he felt like he was about to faint. How many times did she gently touch him? Didn't your words hurt your conscience? Just as Housekeeper Zhu was glaring at Yun Chujio fiercely, Mo Xiaoan stepped forward and gave him a tight slap on the face. "You unruly slave. Although Xiao Ting and Feng Chao are branches, they are still your masters. How could you treat them so slowly? This is unforgivable. Take them away and punish them with 50 strokes of the cane." Mo Xiaoting knew it was time for him to make his appearance, so he glared at Yun Chujio. Then he said to Mo Xiaoan, "Brother Xiaoan, although Housekeeper Zhu's words are a little inappropriate, my granddaughter is also reckless. I think we should forget about this matter." Mo Xiaoan obviously did not want to punish Housekeeper Zhu. Hearing Mo Xiaoting's words, he took the opportunity to say, "All right, today is a good day for us to welcome you. We can't let this slave ruin our mood. Let's go in first." Mo Xiaoting nodded and followed Mo Xiaoan inside. Manager Lu naturally could not follow them. After consulting Mo Xiaoan, he left to do other things. Meanwhile, Yun Chujio hopped behind Mo Xiaoting and Mo Xiaoan as she looked around. The courtyard of the 5th house of the Mo family was very spacious. The decorations inside were exquisite and meticulous. It was obvious that the Mo family had a strong background. "Brother Xiaoting, you just arrived today. Don't go visit your father for now. You should rest and wash up first. When we welcome you tonight, we will meet father and the others," Mo Xiaoan said politely. The guest followed the host. Naturally, Mo Xiaoting couldn't say much, so he agreed after a few polite words. Mo Xiaoan exchanged a few more pleasantries before calling over an old woman. "Manager Xie, take brother Xiaoting and the girl Feng Chao to the guest house to rest. Don't neglect them, otherwise they will be severely punished." "Yes, master." Manager Xia brought Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio to the guest house. There were differences between men and women, so Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio naturally wouldn't be arranged to stay in the same courtyard. Mo Shouting stayed in the Wind Pavilion, Yun Chujio stayed in the Broken Moon Pavilion next door. Yun Chujio couldn't help but curse in her heart. The name of the courtyard was quite elegant, but it was a pity that his heart was really dirty. This fellow was a little excited in his heart. Feng Li City's Mo family's old residence was already tired of playing with it. This Mo family must have a lot of interesting white lotus flowers and dregs. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. A word flashed in the minds of the four dumb cuties at the same time: pervert. Other people would rather have less trouble than more trouble. This black-hearted master was really good. She could not wait for the sky to fall down and let her kick him a couple of times. Pervert. Yun Chujio disapproved of the silly cutie's complaints and said smugly, "Your master's declaration is that I will not cause trouble, but I will never be afraid of trouble. If anyone provoked me, I will torture them to death." Just as Yun Chujio was showing off with the silly cuties, two maids came out from the Broken Moon Pavilion to welcome her. Apparently, the higher-ups had given instructions before, so both of them knew Yun Chujio's identity. While bowing, she said, "Greetings, Miss Fang Chao. I am Chun Xiao and Chun Yu." Yun Chujio nodded, indicating for the two of them to stop bowing. She didn't say anything or say anything else. Although Chun Xiao and Chun Yu didn't show it on the surface, they couldn't help but despise her in their hearts. She was indeed a low-class person from the Western continent, but she was so stingy. She didn't even know how to give a greeting gift. She was simply unlucky to be sent here to serve her. Manager Xie twitched his lips when he saw this. "Miss Fang Chao, this servant will take my leave now. If you have something to do, just ask Chun Xiao and Chun Yu to look for this servant." Yun Chujio nodded her head and walked into the pavilion. After walking for a while, Manager Xie spat on the ground. He originally thought that he would receive some money from the grandfather and grandson of Guangshunzi, but he did not expect them to be so stingy. Mo Shouting was not to blame for this. Since Manager Xie was an old woman, he did not want to reward her. He thought that Yun Chujio would definitely reward him, so he did not say anything. As for Yun Chujio, although she had a lot of money, she would only spend it on the edge of a knife. Manager Xie was the kind of person who would not be satisfied no matter how much she fed him, so Yun Chujio naturally would not waste it. After Yun Chujio entered the New Moon Pavilion, she found that this courtyard was quite exquisite. There were many flowers and plants planted in the courtyard, and there was also a swing. It seemed that the New Moon Pavilion was prepared for women. Chun Xiao, Chun Yu, use these spirit stones to buy some rouge powder. As Yun Chujio said this, she transferred 10,000 high-grade spirit stones to Chun Xiao and Chun Yu from her storage ring. The two of them were shocked. At first they thought that Miss Fang Chao was an iron rooster who did not give a single cent. They did not expect her to be so generous. Usually the master would only reward them with a few hundred spirit stones. They did not expect her to reward them so much. Just as the two of them were about to decline the offer, they heard Yun Chujio continue, "I did not reward you just now because I was afraid that Steward Xie would see it. It is not easy for you as maids. There are masters above and stewards below. You can just keep these spirit stones. If anyone asks, just say that I rewarded you a few hundred spirit stones." When Chun Xiao and Chun Yu heard Yun Chujio's words, their noses felt a little sour. They were the maids with the lowest status, which master wasn't high and mighty. If they wanted to fight, they would fight, and if they wanted to scold, they would scold. They didn't expect this Miss Fang Chao not only to be generous, but also to think so carefully for them. She was really too kind. The two of them avoided a few sentences. Seeing that Yun Chujio was determined to put away the spiritual stones, their attitude immediately became attentive. Yun Chujio was proud. This money was truly worth it. If she gave Steward Xie 10,000 spiritual stones, it would be a waste. If she gave it to the two handmaidens, they would definitely be moved beyond words. This fellow always believed in one thing, and that was never to underestimate the small figures at the bottom. What was the saying? Water can carry a boat, but it can also overturn a boat. The power of the people was endless. Yun Chujio took a hot bath and sat on the swing with her notebook. She looked at the scene leisurely. Chun Xiao and Chun Yu had thought that Yun Chujio would ask about the Mo family and the fifth branch after giving them so many spirit stones. They didn't expect Yun Chujio to not mention a single word about it. The two of them felt that Miss Fong Chao was really kind and understanding. She was the best master in the world. And it was time for dinner. Manager Xia came over to invite Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio to the banquet. Before the grandfather and grandson entered the banquet hall, they could already hear the sounds of laughter coming from inside. It was clear that there were quite a few people inside. Mo Shouting whispered a few more words to Yun Chujio, warning her not to cause trouble. Yun Chujio nodded and gave Mo Shouting a reassuring look. To be honest, Mo Shouting was a little worried. This little girl wasn't afraid of anything. Although she was able to resolve the situation in the end, the entire process was terrifying. Master Ting, Miss Fong Chao has arrived. A manager announced loudly. The voices inside suddenly stopped and everyone's eyes turned to Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio. Although Mo Shouting was a little nervous, he had been through a lot, so his actions were quite normal. He glanced worriedly at Yun Chujio, who was half a step behind her. The corners of his mouth lifted slightly as he smiled sweetly. Only then did he relax. There were about a dozen men and women in the main hall. Sitting in the main seat was an old man with white hair and white beard. He was most likely the uncle of the 5 families, the 5th elder of the Mo family. Yun Chujio did not notice the old lady who was around the same age as the 5th elder. She guessed that the 5th elder's wife had already passed away. Below him stood Mo Xiaoan and an old lady. Yun Chujio swept her gaze across the remaining people. Judging from their ages, they were most likely Mo Xiaoan's sons or grandchildren. It seemed that Mo Xiaoan did not have any biological brothers. Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio first greeted the 5th elder. Shouting greets the 5th uncle. Fong Chao greets the 5th great-grandfather. The 5th elder's long eyebrows twitched. He did not immediately let the two of them stand up. Instead, he picked up his teacup and took 2 sips of tea before saying, "Stand up." Yun Chujio cursed in her heart. Bah! What kind of pretense was this? Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio greeted Mo Xiaoan and the old madam. After exchanging a few pleasantries, they called the younger generation over to greet Mo Shouting while Yun Chujio greeted them again. After a while, the two of them finally finished greeting each other. Yun Chujio was good at reading people's expressions. She could tell that none of the masters of the 5th house looked up to Mo Shouting or her. Even their greetings were perfunctory. They were probably afraid that the 5th elder would blame them. Otherwise they probably wouldn't have come. Although Mo Shouting was unhappy, he still took out the gifts he had prepared. Seeing that the gifts were quite generous, the smiles on the faces of the people from the 5th house became warmer. Whether it was the 5th elder or the older ladies, none of them had any intention of giving Yun Chujio a greeting gift. Yun Chujio's eyes flickered for a moment before she continued to smile coquettishly. Mo Shouting was originally worried that the greedy Yun Chujio would take the initiative to ask for a greeting gift, but seeing that she did not react, he finally let out a sigh of relief. After the small talk, it was time for the banquet to begin. Yun Chujio looked at the food on the table and her eyes lit up. Although the people in the 5th ward weren't that good, the food looked good and smelled quite good. After the 5th elder exchanged a few pleasantries, the banquet began. The banquet was naturally filled with alcohol. Mo Shouting had just arrived, so it wasn't easy for him to reject the invitation. He quickly became a little tipsy. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed. Was he trying to get the old fox to speak the truth after drinking? Teske, these people were really stupid. Although the old fox's spiritual power wasn't high, he wasn't any less shrewd than these people. It was likely that he was just pretending to be drunk. As expected, Mo Xiaoan began to discuss business matters with Mo Shouting. Although Mo Shouting said a lot, it was all insignificant details that made Mo Xiaoan frown in anger. Yun Chujio's table was filled with women. Mo Xiaoan's wife, old Madame Wang, smiled and asked, "Fong Chao, I heard that you came up with many good ideas for Guangshen's business? You are so smart. You are much better than my granddaughters." The faces of the girls present turned ugly as they looked at Yun Chujio with an even more unfriendly gaze. A lowly person from the Western continent was better than them? What a joke. Thus, before Yun Chujio could answer, a girl wearing a pink dress said arrogantly, "Grandmother, although Sister Fangkeo's business is not bad, her spiritual power is too low." The most important thing for us cultivators is to cultivate, and everything else is secondary. Sister Fangqiao, you should focus on cultivating in the future. Sister Fangjiao is right. My spiritual power is too low. I can't even lift my head in front of my sisters. Yun Chujiu lowered her head and said with self-pity. Mo Fangjiao heard Yun Chujiu's words. Her expression became a little better. It's good that you know. The spiritual power in our eastern continent is much denser than that in the western continent. You should take this time to cultivate properly. It's not a wasted trip to the eastern continent. Yes, thank you for your guidance, Sister Fangjiao. After Yun Chujiu finished her words obediently, she picked up her chopsticks and directly picked up half of the fish and placed it into her bowl. She happily ate it. The fish was fresh and tender and the taste was really not bad. When the other girls in the seat saw this, they all felt disdain in their hearts. As expected, she was a lowly person from the western continent. One look and they could tell that she had never eaten good food before. She was just a good-for-nothing. Seeing this, old Madame Wang frowned slightly. She originally wanted to ask a few more questions, but now it seemed that there was no need to ask anymore. Everyone's impression of Yun Chujiu was basically fixed. She had just arrived and had already started fighting with a butler. She had a reckless personality and was even a bit of a scoundrel. In addition, she had low spiritual power, was stingy and was gluttonous. Other than being able to do some business, she had no other redeeming qualities. After the welcoming banquet, Mo Shouting was helped back to the Listening Wind Pavilion by a servant while Yun Chujiu was accompanied by manager Xia. Seeing that Yun Chujiu had returned, Chun Shao and Chun Yu eagerly helped Yun Chujiu wash up before taking turns to be on night duty outside. Yun Chujiu was a little tired from the whole day. She took out her voice transmission talisman and sent in Feng a message before going to bed. Pan de N0, VLMO Xiaoan had already summoned Manager Lu in the afternoon. After some questioning, Manager Lu had already boarded Yun Chujiu's ship, so he naturally knew what to say and what not to say. After interacting with Mo Xiaoan felt that although Mo Shouting was smart, his knowledge was limited. Mo Fangqiao was also a reckless little girl. It seemed that Guang Shunzi did not do anything to his business. The next day Yun Chujiu woke up and had breakfast. She then went to greet Mo Shouting. Grandfather, today is only the 3rd day of the Lunar New Year. There are still 3 days until the 6th day. Let's go out for a walk. Who knows, we might find some business opportunities. Mo Shouting laughed. What you said sounded nice. I'm afraid you want to go out and play. I won't go. I'm going to discuss some matters with your grandfather. You can bring your maid with you. Be careful and don't cause any trouble. After Yun Chujiu agreed, she asked Chun Shao and manager Xie to inform her. Afterwards she led Chun Shao out of the 5th house. Chun Shao, what's the most fun and lively place in Fuhu City? Miss Fang Chao, our Mo residence is in the east side of the city. There are many shops in the west side and there are even some vendors that are very lively, Chun Shao said excitedly. She rarely had the chance to go out, so she was naturally very happy. Thus, Yun Chujiu brought Chun Shao to the west side of the city. As Chun Shao had said, there were all kinds of shops on both sides of the street. There were also many pedestrians on the street. Shopaholic Xiaojiu had come online. Shopkeeper, that red set of clothes, that green set. Yes, I'll buy all of them. Shopkeeper, I'll buy all the high-grade defensive spirit tools in your shop. Do you have any immortal tools? I'll buy all the immortal tools too. Do you have any talismans above level 10? If you do, I'll buy them all. Chun Shao was dumbfounded. It was the first time she had seen someone buying things like this. This was not buying things, this was simply squandering. Soon, all the merchants in the West City knew that the goddess of wealth's grandmother had come. They all moved closer to Yun Chujiu. Miss, the talismans in our shop are of good quality and are cheap. Come and buy them from us. Miss, don't listen to his nonsense. The talismans in our shop are the most affordable. Miss, you've bought quite a lot of talismans. You'd better come to our shop to have a look at the rouge powder. You look so beautiful. If you use some of the rouge powder in our shop, you'll definitely be even more beautiful and moving. Yun Chujiu felt that she was like the flesh of a monk. These people wished they could come up and bite her. She smiled and said to the crowd, everyone, don't be anxious. I still have a lot of things to buy. I'm sure you all know that I'm a branch of the Mo family in the Western continent. I'm here to attend the wedding banquet. There's a reason why I bought so many things. I'll forget it. I won't say anymore. I won't say anymore. Yun Chujio covered her mouth as if she was shocked to realize that she had let the cat out of the bag. She quickly covered her mouth and did not say anything. The curiosity of the onlookers was immediately aroused. One by one they stretched their necks and shouted, "Miss, it's not proper to talk halfway. Why did you buy so many things?" Yun Chujio shook her head. "I can't talk nonsense. I was talking about Baloo just now. Let's not talk anymore. I'll go to your shop to buy some rouge powder." As Yun Chujio said that, she entered a rouge powder shop and began to choose the rouge powder that she liked. The manager of the rouge shop was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He started to introduce the shop. Yun Chujio was as forthright as usual. "Hey, put these on for me. We'll buy them all." The manager saw Chun Xiao go to the shop assistant to count the rouge powder that Yun Chujio had bought. He asked Yun Chujio in a low voice, "Miss, why did you spend so much money to buy so many things?" "Don't worry. After you tell me, I definitely won't tell anyone." Yun Chujio looked around, then she lowered her voice and said, "Sai, I see that you're also a person who keeps his word. Then I'll tell you. To tell you the truth, you've also seen that I'm a teenage girl. This definitely belongs to the younger generation in the Mo family. I originally thought that when I came this time, those elders would at least give me a greeting gift no matter what. After all, my grandfather had prepared a very generous gift for them. Who would have thought that I didn't even get a melon seed skin? There was no one who gave me a greeting gift at all. I was also a person who loved face. If I returned to the Western continent and someone asked me, how could I have the face to say that I didn't get anything? On the one hand, I was embarrassing myself. On the other hand, I was also embarrassing my own family, so I planned to buy some things from my own pocket. When I went back, I would tell others that this was a gift from my own family. I will only tell you about this matter. You must not tell anyone else. If others find out that it was me who said it, my grandfather will definitely beat me to death." The manager of the rouge shop had a burning desire to gossip in his eyes. He nodded and said, "Miss, don't worry. I will definitely not tell anyone. You are welcome to come again next time." Yun Chujio nodded and then brought Chun Xiao to the other shops to continue their sweep. The manager of the rouge shop walked around the shop a few times. He hesitated for a moment and felt that his heart was really suffocating. After hearing such explosive news, if he did not share it with others, it would be too unbearable, right? Forget it. I'll just tell Old Lee from the equipment shop next door. I believe that he won't tell anyone. As long as it doesn't spread, it doesn't count as me not keeping my word. Thus, the boss of the rouge shop went to the equipment shop next door and called Manager Lee from the equipment shop to the side. He said mysteriously, "Old Lee, I'll tell you a big secret. I know why that black fragrant grass bought so many things." The eyes of the owner of the equipment shop instantly lit up. "Old Joe, quickly tell me why." "I'm dying of curiosity. I heard from my brother-in-law's brother-in-law's sister-in-law's sister-in-law's sister-in-law that the 5 branches of the Mo family didn't even give that Mo Fengchao a greeting gift. Guang Xuanji had given every master of the Mo family a generous gift. The 5 branches of the Mo family were really stingy. I guess Miss Fengchao bought so many things. She must have gone back to make up the scene. How pitiful." The manager of the rouge shop repeated what Yun Chujio had told him. "Ah, so it's like that. I guess the 5th branch of the Mo family doesn't look up to Guang Xuanji at all. After all, the people of the Western continent are just inferior people. They are high and mighty. How could they look up to him?" After the manager of rouge shop had satisfied his desire to gossip, he instructed shopkeeper Zhou not to tell anyone else before leaving. Shopkeeper Zhou, who was in the equipment shop, walked around the room a few times. He felt that if he didn't share such explosive gossip, he probably wouldn't be able to sleep well at night. Thus he shared this news with shopkeeper Qi of the satin shop. Shopkeeper Qi then told shopkeeper Zhang of the snack shop about the news. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. If there was any news that spread the fastest, it would naturally be through the grapevine. Yun Chujio was well versed in this. The more she asked people to keep a secret, the more she wanted them to keep it a secret. Did the family want to keep it a secret? In their dreams, Yun Chuju did not covet what they had. After all, she and Mo Shouting had done a lot of dirty work in their business, and Mo Shouting had also given Yun Chuju a lot of spirit stones. By doing this, she wanted to attract the attention of the Mo family, just like how she had attracted Mo Xiaoting's attention in the past. If there was a good wind, she could rely on her strength to send her up to the clouds. Without the wind, she would not be able to get up no matter how hard she tried. So she had to do something. Half a year had passed since the 3-year agreement. Her current level of spiritual power was only at the 4th layer of Lingxian realm. It was simply too slow. She had to jump from the western continent to the eastern continent. This was a great opportunity and she could not miss it. Yun Chujio brought Chun Xiao to the restaurant to buy a few good tables. Only then did she swagger back to the 5th branch of the Mo family with Chun Xiao. Yun Chujio took out a few pieces of rouge and powder and gave them to Chun Xiao and Chun Yu. She then went to see Mo Shouting. Yun Chujio took out the banquet she bought and the grandfather and grandson chatted as they ate. Fong Cao, you didn't cause any trouble when you went out, did you? Mo Shouting felt a little uneasy. He didn't think that Yun Chujio was someone who could take it lying down. Not only did she not receive any gifts yesterday, she was even teased by a few girls from the 5th ward. It was strange that she did not react at all. Grandfather, I'm not a 3-year-old anymore. How can I be so ignorant? I've seen many things that are more novel than what we have on the Western continent, so I bought a lot of them. I'm planning to get our customers to copy them and sell them for a high price. Yun Chujio said in a low voice. Her voice wasn't low, so both Chun Xiao and the maids at the Listening Wind Pavilion could hear her clearly. Chun Xiao had been wondering what Yun Chujio had left to say on the street, but now she finally understood. This Miss Fong Chao was really good at doing business. She was always thinking about doing business. She hadn't said anything on the street before because she was afraid that the merchants would laugh at her. How pitiful. Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio's conversation quickly reached Mo Xiaoan's ears. Although Mo Xiaoan felt that Yun Chujio was indeed a good material for business, he did not take it to heart. A lot of the things sold in the shop were made from materials from the eastern continent. Even if they brought it to the western continent, they wouldn't be able to replicate it. There was nothing to be afraid of. However, the next morning, the leaders of the other 4 branches of the Mo family came knocking on the door. Mo Xiaoan couldn't help but wonder, were these 4 people here to find out more about Mo Shouting? Did they think he was up to something? They were really using the heart of a villain to measure the stomach of a gentleman. So when Mo Xiaoan saw the 4 people, his expression turned ugly. Why are you so free? You are a rare guest that we usually can't invite. Mo Xiaoquan, who was also the current head of the Mo family, snorted coldly. Xiaoan, I feel that you usually handle things quite safely. I didn't expect you to actually do such an inappropriate thing. It's really embarrassing. Mo Xiaoan was dumbfounded. Big brother, although you're the head of the family, you can't just label me like this for no reason. How am I inappropriate? If you don't believe us, you can take care of the business with Guang Xuanji. Mo Xiaoan's face was gloomy. He said unhappily. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Mo Xiaoan's words sounded like he didn't have any silver in his mouth. The 4 of them looked at each other and their suspicions deepened. Mo Xiaoquan scoffed, we'll talk about this later. After all, we have to check our accounts every half a year. We're not here because of business, we're here because of the way you treated Guang Xuanji. Mo Xiaoan was a little surprised. What's wrong with Guang Xuanji? I've arranged for Mo Shouting and Mo Fong Chao to be in the upper room. I've also arranged for them to be served with good food and drinks. I've even arranged for a welcoming banquet. Is there anything wrong with that? Mo Xiaoping from the 4th room curled his lips and said, Xiaoan, you sure know how to make yourself look good. What's wrong with that? Do you know what everyone in Fuhu City is talking about? The grandfather and grandson came all the way here and the 5th branch just showed off their might when they met. Although you later said that it was housekeeper Zhu who made the decision on his own, no one is a fool. Does he have that much courage? It's probably because of your instructions, right? TSK you actually let the grandfather and grandson stay in the other branch. Only you can do such a thing. Mo Xiaofu had always been dissatisfied with the 5th branch's control of the Western continent's business. Now that he finally had an opportunity, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Mo Xiaogui from the third branch also echoed, "That's right. Xiaoan, you really didn't handle this matter properly." "That's fine, but I heard that the elders of the fifth branch actually didn't give Feng Chao girl a single greeting gift." "Fifth brother, it's not that I want to criticize you, but aren't you being too petty? Guang Xuanji gave you many gifts, but you actually didn't give a single cent? You really embarrassed our family. Now that the whole street is talking about this matter, I don't even have the face to go out." Mo Xiaoan was dumbfounded. After a long while he finally said, "Let's put housekeeper Zhu's matter aside for now. How did outsiders know that our fifth house didn't give her a greeting gift?" Mo Xiaogui pursed his lips. "Feng Chao girl bought a lot of things yesterday. When others asked her why she bought so many things, she refused to tell them. Then someone guessed that it was most likely because your fifth branch didn't give her a greeting gift. That's why she bought so many things and was prepared to go back and fill up the scene. Fifth brother, as for the matter of you not giving her a greeting gift, it's probably because some servant didn't keep his mouth shut. Feng Chao didn't say anything. Xiaoan, I don't think your fifth branch is lacking in gifts, right? This matter is too inappropriate. The Mo family is considered a third-class family. If word of this gets out, other families will laugh at us. You'd better think of a way to make up for it, Mo Xiaoquan said unhappily. Mo Zioan's face alternated between green and white. He did not put Mo shouting and Yun Chujio in his eyes at all. He thought it was just a branch. It was already good enough for them to come to the eastern continent to broaden their horizons. So he did not pay too much attention to the gift. If they didn't give it to him, then so be it. Who would have thought that in just a day or so, it would cause such a commotion? Which servant had the mouth to say so much? It was simply despicable. He did not suspect Yun Chujio because Yun Chujio and Mo shouting had already said that she bought things to go back and fake them. She did not mention the gift at all. Moreover, the rumors on the streets did not mention that Yun Chujio had said it herself. And he did not think that any girl would complain about not receiving a gift. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Mo Zioan's expression changed a few times as he said with a dark expression, "Big brother, this matter is indeed inappropriate. I will think of a way to make up for it." Mo Xiaoquan nodded. "Xiaoan, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but there are many pairs of eyes staring at us. If we are not careful, our status as a third-class family will be lost. Furthermore, although Guang Shunzi is from the western continent, he has helped us earn a lot of money in the past few months. We still have to put on a show." "That's right, Xiaoan. Don't tell me that the five of you can't even bring out some gifts." Mo Xiaofu from the second branch said with his mouth curled. Mo Xiaoan was so embarrassed that he became angry. He said unhappily, "Second brother, I didn't do this properly. But what do you mean by saying that with guns and sticks? If you're dissatisfied with me, just say it." Mo Xiaofu naturally wasn't willing to be outdone. "Xiaoan, what do you mean with a gun in your mouth? What I said is the truth. It's fine if you don't want your face, but we, the other four branches, still want it. This good news doesn't go out, but bad news spreads far and wide. I reckon that the other families have already found out about this matter. They might not be laughing at our Mo family." Panda N0 VL Mo Xiaoan naturally became even angrier when he heard him say this. "Who do you think doesn't want their face? I think you're deliberately finding trouble." Mo Xiaoquan saw that the two of them were arguing endlessly. He slapped the coffee table. "Enough. Stop arguing. You're already so old, yet you're still arguing like a young boy. Don't you know shame? Xiaoan, I won't say anything else. You should quickly think of a way to make up for it. Also, after the wedding, Xiao Ting will definitely bring Feng Chao girl to visit each room. Don't let things like the fifth room happen again." Mo Xiaoquan was, after all, the head of the family. Mo Xiaoan and Mo Xiaofu looked embarrassed and could only nod in agreement. The five of them chatted for a while more before Mo Xiaoquan and the other three left. After Mo Xiaoan sent the four of them back, he was so angry that he smashed the teapot and teacup into pieces. After calming down a little, he went to see the fifth elder. After Mo Xiaoan saw the fifth elder, he told him what had happened. "Father, although we didn't do the right thing with the greeting gifts, the other four branches didn't come over to denounce us. I think they were dissatisfied with our management and Guangshen's business, so they took the opportunity to attack us." The fifth elder was silent for a moment. He snorted coldly and said, "What you said makes sense. The big branch is still a little better, but the other 3 branches can't wait for us to make a mistake and snatch the business away." I was indeed wrong in thinking about this matter. You should have given the meeting gift to someone else, someone of a higher level. Then spread the news that the 5th branch's meeting gift was originally intended to be given to the Fengchao girl along with the other branches. Now, they're afraid that people will misunderstand, so they gave it in advance. Mo Xiaoan was stunned. Then he said in admiration, "Father, your idea is good. This way not only will we be cleared of all wrongdoing, but we'll also drag the other 4 branches down with us. When the time comes, if their meeting gift is too thin, I'll be the talk of the town." The corner of the 5th elder's mouth curled up into a sneer. "In our generation we have always been fighting. However, the 4 of us together cannot defeat Big Brother. If it were not for Big Brother supporting Xiaoquan, the Mo family would not have fallen into his hands. Let's just endure it now. Hopefully I can endure through the other 4. When that time comes, our 5 families will be in charge of the Mo family." Mo Xiaoan naturally couldn't directly say that those 4 old fellows would definitely die in front of the 5th elder. So he said, "Father, our 5 branches will definitely have the last laugh. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content." After Mo Xiaoan left the 5th elder's courtyard, he called old Madame Wang over and scolded her. Old Madame Wang called her 2 daughters-in-law over and scolded her. Then guests began to come to the Waning Moon Pavilion one after another. The first one to come was Steward Xie, who was beside old Madame Wang. After bowing, he said, "Miss Feo, this is a greeting gift from our madam to you. We originally planned to give it to you together with the other 4 rooms after the wedding banquet, but we thought it would be too late, so we asked this servant to send it over." Yun Chujio saw that Steward Xie was holding 2 upper-grade spirit tools in his hands, and she said with a smile, "I cannot refuse an elder's gift, so I will thicken my skin and accept it. Please thank Grandmother Wang for my kindness." Steward Xie saw that Yun Chujio did not intend to give him any money after she handed over the items, so he could only take his leave embarrassedly. He secretly hated Yun Chujio in his heart. What a stingy iron rooster. This time she would be rich. Not long after Manager Xie left, old Madame Wang's 2 daughters-in-law also sent people to deliver the greeting gifts. Although they were not as valuable as old Madame Wang's, they were still pretty good. Even Mo Fengjiao and the other 2 girls also sent their maids to deliver the greeting gifts. Regardless of whether they were valuable or not, they still meant the same thing. Yun Chujio sneered in her heart. No wonder the Mo family was only a 3rd-class family. The knowledge of these people was really limited. They did not even know how to put on a full show. Although old Madame Wang and the others had already paid for the gifts, they had all been sent by servants. This was obviously a form of patronizing charity. Even though old Madame Wang and the others were elders and didn't need to come personally, Mo Fengjiao and the others as their peers should have come personally and said a few polite words. This way they would have some face. Sooner or later there would come a day when they wouldn't be able to reach the top. When Yun Chujio went to pay her respects to Mo Shouting, she told him about the gifts she had received. Mo Shouting was quite pleased. He felt that Mo Xiaoan and the others' attitude had finally improved. Panda N0VL Yun Chujio smiled. When she returned to the New Moon Pavilion, she told Mo Shouting what had happened using the voice transmission talisman. After listening to the content of the voice transmission talisman, Mo Shouting was dumbfounded. He knew it. How could this greedy little girl Feng Chao be so quiet? It turned out that she had a big trick up her sleeve. This trick was effective immediately. The 5th wife immediately gave him a gift as a welcome gift. It was impossible for her to think that Feng Chao had planned all of this. Mo Shouting once again felt lucky that he did not marry Yun Chujio to the Zhao family. Even if she was weak now, she would still soar to the sky sooner or later. Furthermore, this little girl was vengeful and would not have a good ending if she offended her. Mo Shouting suddenly remembered what Mo Qing had told him. He thought about it 100 times and comforted himself that Feng Chao would never find out about this. The news of the 5th son of the Mo family giving Yun Chujio the gift was quickly leaked out by the servants of the Mo family. The public opinion finally calmed down. However, because of this incident, more people and forces turned their attention to Enchanting and Untamed. They wanted to see what would happen next. It was finally the day of Mo Xiaoquan's eldest son, Mo Junkin's wedding. The event was naturally spectacular. Mo Junkin was most likely the future head of the Mo family, so his wedding was of a high standard. Enchanting and Untamed followed the fifth son to the main room. The men and women naturally sat separately, so Untamed sat at a table with Mo Fangjiao and the others. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. It was Untame's first time attending a wedding after she transmigrated. She watched the wedding process with interest. She felt that studying was not bad as she could use it when she got married to a gigolo. Besides Mo Fangjiao and the other three from the fifth room, there were also a few ladies from the fourth room who sat with Untamed. After they sized up Untamed, they started to whisper to Mo Fangjiao and the others. Although they were whispering, they were actually quite loud. Untamed naturally heard them clearly. Sister Fangjiao, I heard that someone went outside to slander your fifth room because they didn't receive the greeting? The one who spoke was Mo Fangjiao from the second room. She naturally didn't have good intentions when she said these words. On the one hand she was slandering Untamed, on the other hand she was trying to provoke Mo Fangjiao. If Mo Fangjiao and Untamed were to fight, it would be exactly what she wanted. Mo Fangxin, who was in the third room, also chimed in, that's right. As a person you should know your limits. It's your duty to give her a gift but not to give her a favor. It would be shameless of you to ask for a gift yourself. The rest of the people also chimed in. The main content of the sarcasm was that Untamed went out and said that the fifth room did not give her a gift. She was really a country bumpkin from the western continent who was petty and greedy. Untamed turned a deaf ear to it. She felt that Mo Xiaoan definitely did not have any evidence to prove that she was the one who said the greeting gift. Otherwise he would not be so calm. As for the sarcasm of the Mo family's girls, this guy did not care at all. It was just a few ducks barking. If they were willing to bark, they could bark. As for whether Mo Fangjiao, this stupid duck, would fall for it, that was not a question that she needed to consider. Naturally, the fifth chamber's people had a headache. What she needed to do was to secretly open the recording stone. Mo Fangjiao had already heard her mother talk about some meeting gifts. She had long been dissatisfied with Untamed. Now that she had been provoked by Mo Fangjiao and the others, she naturally could not contain her anger. She glared at Untamed fiercely. Some people are inferior people from the western continent. Their eyelids are very shallow. The things from the fifth branch will be used as charity for beggars. Mo Fangjiao and the others thought that Untamed would definitely quarrel with Mo Fangjiao after hearing what Mo Fangjiao said. They did not expect Untamed to continue looking forward with great interest as if she did not hear anything. Mo Fangjiao and the others could not help but be disappointed. It seemed that Mo Fangjiao knew her own limits, so she did not dare to fall out with Mo Fangjiao. It was really disappointing. Mo Fangjiao said a few sarcastic words. Seeing that Untamed did not respond, she could not let go of the anger in her heart. She could only sit there and sulk. When the newlyweds were sent into the bridal chamber, the banquet officially began. Of course, Untamed did not stand on ceremony. She picked up whichever dish was delicious and ate happily. The ladies of the Mo family exchanged glances. This Mo Fangjiao was really an idiot. She only knew how to eat and did not have the reserved manner that a lady should have. Mo Fangjiao rolled her eyes and said with a smile, Sister Fangqiao, I heard that you did not grow up in the western continent? Yes, I grew up in the Qingxian continent, Untamed said very naturally as if she did not hear Mo Fang's bad intentions. Mo Fangjiao covered her mouth with her hand. The Qingxian continent? Isn't that the lowest grade continent? I heard that the concentration of spiritual qi there isn't even 1% of that of our eastern continent. Sister Fangqiao, it's a good thing that you were found by Guang Xuanji. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to ascend to the western continent in your lifetime, let alone the eastern continent. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Mo Fangxin's voice was very loud. Even the nearby tables of women had heard her words. These people could not help but turn their gazes towards Yun Chujio, wanting to hear what she had to say. Some of these women were from the Mo clan or the collateral family. There were also some from other clans. This was the first time they had seen Yun Chujio. However, they all roughly knew that this was a little girl from the Western continent. At this time, some people were gloating, some were sympathetic, and most people were just watching the show. They all felt that this Mo Fangchao had been scarred by someone, and they were either angry and noisy, or they were silently crying out of self-pity, but Yun Chujio's next performance shocked them. Sister Fangjiao, you're right. I grew up on a low-level continent, and the concentration of spiritual qi there is even less than 1% of the eastern continent. But so what? I am now at the 6th level of the spiritual venerable realm. Although I am much lower than the other sisters, I feel that if I grew up in the same environment, some people might not be able to practice as fast as me, right? Actually, I feel that there is no point in discussing a person's background. When you stand at the peak, no matter how humble your background is, there will naturally be people who will help you beautify it. However, when you are at the bottom, no matter how noble your background was in the past, it will only leave a topic for others to talk about after dinner. Moreover, you don't eat, you don't speak, you don't sleep, and you don't speak. I, a country bumpkin from a low-grade continent, don't know the rules. My sisters and sisters should also know the rules, right? It's better to eat quickly. Otherwise, if this dish gets cold, it won't taste good. Wasting it is the most shameful act. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she picked up her chopsticks and continued eating, as if the long speech just now was not what she said. The faces of Mo Fangjiao and the others present turned green and white, especially Mo Fangjiao, who wished she could find a hole to hide in. She really wanted to refute Yun Chujio, but she found that there was no room for rebuttal. Say what? Could it be that what Yun Chujio said was wrong? She had already cultivated to the 6th level of the spiritual venerable realm on a continent with such low spiritual power. How could she say that her cultivation was slow? If it were them, they might not even be able to reach the level of spiritual emperor. Moreover, although the people who cultivated did not have the rules and regulations of the secular world, the higher the level of the family, the stricter the rules were. They knew that they had to eat without speaking, sleep without speaking. They had mocked and ridiculed her for a long time, and it was really a little embarrassing. Some of the other clan's madams were shocked when they heard Yun Chujio's words. This little girl from the Western continent was really sharp-tongued. Her counterattack was really beautiful. However, it was a pity that this little girl was from the Western continent. Although she was eloquent and was good at doing business, her starting point was too low. She still could not catch up to these girls from the Eastern continent. The few girls from the Mo family looked embarrassed. Although they hated Yun Chujio to death, they could not say anything. After all, there were so many people watching them. Yun Chujio could not be bothered with them. It would be better if they did not eat. It just so happened that she ate more. The few girls from the Mo family looked at Yun Chujio as she ate. They cursed in their hearts. She was really a good-for-nothing. She only knew how to eat. It would be better if she choked to death. Yun Chujio ate all their grievances and felt that it was a different feeling. After the wedding banquet ended, Yun Chujio followed old Madame Wang and the others back to the 5th room. Yun Chujio had just entered the waning moon pavilion when Mo Fangjiao angrily followed her in. Mo Fangjiao, you ate our 5th room and lived in our 5th room. Now you actually embarrassed me in front of everyone. Do you still have any shame? This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Sister Fangjiao, are you just going to stand there and discuss shamelessness with me? Sit down and tell me. Yun Chujio sat on a stone bench and pointed at another stone bench as she said to Mo Fangjiao. Mo Fangjiao felt a huge force hit the cotton and she was so angry that she started to twitch. Mo Fangjiao, stop talking about him. Apologize to me right now or I will not let you off. After saying that, Mo Fangjiao glared at Yun Chujio fiercely. Chun Xiao and Chun Yu stood at the side, nervously staring at Yun Chujio, thinking that this was bad. Miss Fangjiao would definitely not apologize. When the time came, Miss Fangjiao might make a move. If they made a move, who would they help? Mo Fangjiao also felt that Yun Chujio would definitely not apologize. She had already thought it through. As long as Yun Chujio argued with her, She would take the opportunity to teach this ungrateful brat a lesson. At worst she would just be punished, at least she could vent her anger. I'm sorry. What did you say? Mo Fengjiao was dumbfounded. What? This country bumpkin apologized so easily? Didn't you ask me to apologize to you? Sister Fengjiao, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have let you down, alright? Chun Xiao, I ate a little too much tonight. Hurry up and make me a pot of tea. I need to digest my food, Yun Chujio said with a smile. Chun Xiao was stunned for a moment and then ran to make tea. This Miss Fengjiao was really unconventional. She had never seen an apology so calm. It was as if she was not apologizing but rather. It was as if she was coaxing an insensible child. Mo Fengjiao was stunned for a moment and then slammed the stone table. You're just perfunctory. Yun Chujio spread her hands. Sister Fengjiao, my apology is sincere enough. Do you want me to cry and apologize to you? Mo Fengjiao couldn't say a word. She felt even more depressed than before. This Mo Fengjiao had clearly apologized, so why did she feel even more embarrassed? At this moment Chun Xiao brought over a pot of tea. Yun Chujio took the teapot and poured 2 cups of tea. She used her hands to test the temperature. Then she said, Sister Fengjiao, Sister has used tea as a substitute for wine to apologize to you. I'll drink first as a token of respect. Sister Fengjiao, you look like an open-minded and reasonable person. You want to forgive Sister, right? Yun Chujio picked up a cup of tea and drank it in one gulp. Then she looked at Mo Fengjiao with a smile. Pandian 0 Vel. Calm Mo Fengjiao wished she could pick up the teacup and splash the tea on Yun Chujio's face. However, she was stopped by Yun Chujio's words, so she could only pick up the teacup and drink it in one gulp. Mo Fengjiao, since you are so sensible, I will let you off this time. If there is a next time, I will teach you a lesson. After Mo Fengjiao finished her harsh words, she gritted her teeth and left. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed as she watched Mo Fengjiao leave. Mo Fengjiao's impulsive temper wasn't particularly annoying, but Mo Fengjiu from the second branch was a pure white lotus. It was better to be careful. The next day, after Mo Shouting and Mo Xiaoan had a discussion, Mo Xiaoan accompanied Yun Chujio to the other 4 branches. Originally, Mo Xiaoan did not need to accompany her personally, but he had his own plans. Firstly, he wanted to see how the other 4 rooms treated Mo Shouting and what gifts they would give him. Secondly, he wanted to prevent the other rooms from talking about Mo Shouting. Thirdly, he wanted to see the first elder's health. The first room they went to was naturally the main room, which was the residence of the current master Mo Xiaoquan. Mo Xiaoquan had reprimanded Mo Xiaoan previously, so he naturally had to lead by example. So as soon as Mo Shouting and Yun Chujio entered the main house, they felt the warmth of spring. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Fengjiao girl is really pretty. I heard that she knows how to do business. What a lovely girl. Quickly come to grandmother Tian and let her have a good look. Mo Xiaoquan's wife, old Madame Tian, said amiably. Yun Chujio was not shy. She walked up to old Madame Tian and said, Grandmother Tian, I'm embarrassed by your praise. How can I be as good as you say? I am far from being as good as my sisters. My sisters are like the bright moon in the sky and I am like a pebble on the ground. This little mouth really knows how to speak. This 8 treasures ice silk bracelet is a gift from Grandmother Tian. Come, Grandmother Tian will help you put it on. As old Madame Tian spoke, she put a crystal-clear bracelet on Yun Chujio's left wrist. Yun Chujio thought to herself, old Madame Tian was much more troublesome than old Madame Wang. No wonder she was the wife of the patriarch. After Yun Chujio thanked her, she said a few more words of flattery. All she said was that old Madame Tian was young. In an instant the room was filled with laughter and harmony. Seeing the harmonious atmosphere, Mo Xiaoan felt a little uneasy. With this comparison, it seemed like the 5th chamber was not treating Mo Shouting and his grandson very warmly. Mo Xiaoan rolled his eyes and said, Big brother Shouting is mainly here to pay his respects to first uncle. Why don't you lead us to first uncle's courtyard? Mo Xiaoquan couldn't help but sneer at Mo Xiaoan's words. He knew why Mo Xiaoan was so determined to pay his respects to first elder. Wasn't it because he wanted to check on first elder's condition? Unfortunately, his wishful thinking was in vain. His father was a divine schemer. He had long guessed that he was going to do this, so he had made ample preparations. He could use this opportunity to intimidate the 5 houses. Of course. Brother Xiaoting, come with me, Emo Xiaoquan said politely. Emo Zioan's eyes flashed and he also raised his leg to follow. Since he was going to greet the great elder, it would not be good for Emo Xiaoquan to chase him away. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. The first elder was the biggest lackey in the Emo family. This was a good opportunity. So the shameless man said, Grandfather Quan, can I go with you? I've always heard that the first elder is not only talented in spiritual energy, he is also very wise. I would like to listen to his teachings. Emo Zioquan's face froze. It was rare to see a girl who could flatter him so naturally. He coughed and said, Of course you can. You can go with us. After Emo Xiaoquan and the others left, the people who stayed behind commented on Emo Xiaoting and Yun Chujio. Only one girl in a white dress had a cold look in her eyes. This Emo Fengchao looked heartless, but she was actually quite scheming. Did she really think that she would benefit from meeting her great-grandfather? She was really naive. Yun Chujio followed Emo Xiaoquan and the others and finally arrived outside a courtyard. Yun Chujio sniffed. The smell of medicinal pills? Could it be that this great elder knew how to refine pills? Emo Zioan's eyes flashed and asked with concern, Big brother, why is there such a strong smell of medicinal pills here? Is there something wrong with uncle's body? Emo Xiaoquan glanced at him indifferently, causing Emo Zioan's expression to become embarrassed. Only then did he say, Father's body is very tough. However, he has been refining a grade 14 blood creation pill recently. Judging from this fragrance, Father has probably succeeded in refining it. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Emo Xiaoan could not help but feel disappointed when he heard Emo Zioquan's words. He had thought that the first elder's illness was incurable. He had not expected that he would still have the strength to refine pills. He reckoned that he would not die for a while. What an old man. At this moment, a loud shout came from within. Is that Xiaoting? Come in. Emo Xiaoquan smiled. It seems that father has already noticed us. Let's go in quickly. Emo Xiaoan was even more disappointed when he heard the great elder's energetic voice. He followed Emo Xiaoquan into the courtyard. Yun Chujio secretly looked at the great elder's courtyard. The courtyard was very spacious. Other than a small road paved with blue stone, the rest of the place was planted with all kinds of herbs. It seemed that the great elder really knew how to refine pills. A maid opened the door curtain and Emo Xiaoquan and the others entered the study room on the east side. There was no one else in the spacious study room. Everyone couldn't help but wonder where was the first elder. At this moment, an old man with white hair and a beard walked in from outside the door. His body carried a strong medicinal fragrance. He laughed heartily. I just successfully refined a batch of blood creation pills and now I'm seeing Xiaoting again. Today is truly a double celebration. Seeing this, Emo Xiaoting quickly stepped forward and bowed. Yun Chujio also followed behind Emo Xiaoting and bowed. The first elder waved his hand. We're all family, there's no need for so much red tape. All of you get up. Panda N0VL. Seeing that the first elder was full of energy, Emo Xiaoan felt a chill down his spine. It looked like this old man was going to live for at least another few decades. The fifth wife would not be able to take over for a while. The first elder asked a few questions, but they were all polite questions. Emo Xiaoting replied respectfully. The first elder turned his gaze to Yun Chujio and said kindly, Feng Chao may be young but she is quite smart. I heard that you came up with the idea for the 7 stars lucky card. Thank you, great-grandfather, for your praise. Although I am not good at cultivation, I still have a lot of ideas. Great elder, you still know how to refine pills. I admire alchemists the most in my life. Although I also know how to refine some low-level pills, compared to you the difference is like heaven and earth. Sigh, it's a pity that I can't be by your side often. Otherwise I would definitely learn from you. Yun Chujio sighed and said, Oh. The little girl also knows how to refine pills. Which level of pills do you know how to refine? The great elder asked with interest. He was just asking casually. He felt that Yun Chujio could only refine level 5 or 6 pills. After all, she was a little girl from an inferior continent. I can refine level 10 pills, but the quality is not particularly good. I can only guarantee an 80% success rate. Half of them will be high grade. Yun Chujio said with a smile. This fellow felt that this level was just right. It wasn't too eye-catching, but it also showed a certain talent in alchemy. It should be enough for fishing. As expected, everyone was shocked, especially Mo shouting. He had no idea that his granddaughter, apart from her business talent, could also refine pills. And she was able to refine level 10 pills at such a young age? Even on the Eastern continent, such talent was considered pretty good. However, the Great Elder and the others felt that Yun Chujio was bragging. In particular, the Great Elder originally had a good impression of Yun Chujio because the words that Yun Chujio said at the wedding banquet had already reached his ears. He felt that this little girl was eloquent and had an optimistic and tenacious character. He did not expect that she would actually brag now. She was really useless. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. The first elder's face darkened. Feng Chao, although being competitive is a good thing, honesty is the most important thing. Lying is not something a good kid should do. Mo Xiaoquan chimed in. That's right, Feng Chao, how can you refine a level 10 pill at such a young age? Not to mention you, even some alchemists on the Eastern continent couldn't do it, let alone an 80% success rate and half a high-quality pill. Hearing this, Mo shouting also felt that Yun Chujio was messing around. His face darkened. Feng Chao, stop messing around. Hurry up and apologize. Yun Chujio had an innocent look. I really know how to refine level 10 pills. If you don't believe me, I will refine a batch of level 10 pills for you. Mo shouting was about to reprimand Yun Chujio when the first elder said, alright, since Feng Chao said that she really knows how to refine level 10 pills, then let's refine a level 10 Yuan Ling pill. Mo shouting glared at Yun Chujio. It was hard to stop now. If the refinement of the grass did not succeed, the first elder would definitely scold her. This little girl was really being ridiculous. The first elder brought a few people to the alchemy room on the west side. There was a specially purchased earth fire inside that could be used to refine pills as soon as the switch was turned on. Yun Chujio felt that the design of this earth fire was much more advanced than that of the Tianyuan continent. She randomly took out a clean alchemy furnace from her storage ring and placed it on top of the earth fire. This alchemy furnace was prepared by Yun Chujio for the heaven and earth heaven and earth heaven and earth heaven and earth heaven furnace, so she did not recognize it as her master. If she did not recognize it as her master, she would not be able to refine pills. So she bit her index finger and began to refine the alchemy furnace. Mo shouting felt a headache coming on. How could an alchemist not have a dedicated alchemy furnace? This person was amazing. She actually refined it on the spot. One look and it was obvious that she was unreliable. If the first elder were to blame her later, it could only be said that she was too young and immature. This herb was really troublesome. The first elder and the other two had the same thoughts as Mo shouting. Which alchemists didn't have their own furnace? This little girl was indeed bragging. Yun Chujio thought back to the method of refining the origin spirit pill. She wanted to hide her weakness, so she did not adjust the amount of herbs as she usually did. Instead, she began to refine the pill step by step. The first elder was an expert. Seeing that Yun Chujio's portion and steps were correct, he felt a little relieved. Perhaps this little girl really knew how to refine pills. While Yun Chujio was refining, although she did not add any medicinal herbs, her spiritual sense had been observing the changes of the medicinal herbs in the pill refining furnace. Suddenly Yun Chujio frowned slightly. The great elder and the others saw it and guessed in their hearts that this little girl had probably forgotten some of the steps. Although she looked decent, she still lacked maturity. How could they know that Yun Chujio was not worried about the failure of the pill at this moment? Instead, she realized that the purity of the medicinal herbs provided by the great elder was too good, so the pill success rate might reach 90%, and they were all high grade. This was not in line with this fellow's intention to hide his true strength. What should she do? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and suddenly opened the pill refining furnace's lid. Then she picked up a section of fallen petals vine and threw it into the pill refining furnace. The great elder was so angry that his white beard was trembling. Nonsense. Nonsense. The biggest taboo in alchemy is to open the lid of the alchemy furnace halfway. Your alchemy furnace will be ruined for sure. What you did before was clearly right, but you just had to make things worse. How infuriating. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Although Mo Xiaoquan and Mo Xiaoan didn't know how to refine pills, they knew that they couldn't open the lid during the process. They shook their heads. This Feng Chao didn't even know about the taboo of pill refinement, yet she was still bragging about how she knew how to refine pills. How ridiculous. Mo Xiaoting's forehead was covered in sweat. The first elder was the actual person in charge of the Mo family. If Feng Chao caused such a ruckus, it would definitely upset him. They might even expel them back to the Western continent. Feng Chao was such a bad person. Yun Chujio did not seem to notice the reaction of the crowd. She smiled. First elder, my alchemy is different from others. Every time I make a pill I add some herbs into it. I don't know if it's because of my mental state, but after doing this I feel more confident that I can successfully refine a pill every time. Everyone's faces froze. Was this a joke? Mental state? This was pure nonsense. Pandian Zero Vel. Calm. If it wasn't for the fact that there were other people present, Mo Xiaoting would have scolded Yun Chujio. He could ignore other things, but if he were to cause trouble in front of First Elder, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? He really shouldn't have let her follow him. However, Mo Xiaoting noticed that the fragrance of a pill began to spread from the furnace. Could it be that he had successfully refined a pill? Mo Xiaoting shook his head again. It was probably because the herbs had already been refined into a medicinal liquid that the fragrance was present. Even if the pill was successfully refined, it would be lucky if there were 2 or 3 completed pills. Mo Xiaoting felt a little relieved. No matter what, it wasn't too embarrassing that the herb girl did not blow up the furnace. The 3 elders shared the same thoughts as Mo Xiaoting. Although there was a difference between what she said and what she said, it was still okay. At least she didn't mess up or blow up the furnace. A moment later, Yun Chujio said with a smile, "It's a success. I told you as long as I add some herbs into it I will definitely succeed." Mo Xiaoting couldn't hold it in any longer. Enough. You should change your reckless attitude. Uncle Feng Chao is still young and doesn't know what she's talking about. Don't mind her. The first elder nodded. It's okay for young people to be arrogant. But Feng Chao, your alchemy skills are quite good. It's just that you need to change your habit of adding herbs into it. Otherwise it will be difficult for you to succeed. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Great old master, what you said makes sense. I just lack the guidance of a master like you. Otherwise, I would have thought that this strange habit would be beneficial to my alchemy. The great elder saw that Yun Chujio was humbly accepting the criticism and his impression of her changed slightly. Then he said, "It's great that you know your mistakes and can improve. When you go back you can ask Xiao Ting to help you hire an alchemy master. Who knows, you might have some achievements in the future." Although the great elder's words were vague, everyone present could hear the hidden meaning. It was a clear rejection of Yun Chujio's intention to learn alchemy from him. However, this was also within everyone's expectations. Not to mention that Yun Chujio did not have an 80% success rate in refining pills. Even if she had achieved it, the possibility of the great elder personally guiding her was very slim. First of all, the great elder's identity was still there. How could he carefully teach a junior who was about to produce 5 servings of pills? What did these juniors of the family think? Second, the great elder was already very old. How could he have the time and energy to teach people how to refine pills? At this moment, Yun Chujio said clearly, "Great elder, what you said makes sense. I have learned. However, shouldn't we see if I succeeded in refining the pills?" This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoting glared at Yun Chujio. The reason why no one had checked the furnace was to save her some face. After all, she was just a little girl and they were afraid that she would be embarrassed. Who would have thought that she would take the initiative to bring it up? If that's the case, then open the lid of the furnace. The first elder shook his head. The little girl was still too young and impetuous. She wouldn't give up until she hit a wall. Yun Chujio opened the lid of the alchemy furnace with a smile. Then her small face twitched and she sighed. Sigh, the great master is right. I still need some time. The great elder and the others were standing some distance away from the operating table, so they didn't see the situation inside the alchemy furnace. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, they understood in their hearts that the pill success rate was probably less than 30%. Feng Chao, you are still young. It's already good enough that you were able to refine a primordial spirit pill. Don't be discouraged. Keep up the good work in the future, Mo Xiaoquan said amiably. That's right. After all, a primordial spirit pill is a level 10 pill. Even if you were able to refine one successfully, it would still be amazing. Mo Xiaoan comforted Yun Chujio even though he was secretly gloating. Mo Xiaoting glared at Yun Chujio. Do you know how high the heavens are now? You even bragged about an 80% success rate? But what happened? In the past, grandfather warned you not to be arrogant. But you are showing off in front of your uncle. When you return home, you should reflect on yourself. The reason why Mo Shouting said this was to shut the first elder's mouth so that he wouldn't take the opportunity to punish Yun Chujio. The first elder naturally understood what Mo Shouting meant and smiled indifferently. He was already so old, so he didn't want to argue with a little girl. However, he originally wanted to test out this Mo Fengchao. But now it seemed there was no need. Grandfather, everything you said is correct, but I refined 8 original spirit pills. I'm just a little regretful. Only 4 of them are high-grade pills. I originally thought that there would be 6 high-grade pills this time. Yun Chujio said with a regretful expression. Everyone rushed to the front of the alchemy furnace in one go. They saw that other than the residue of some medicinal herbs at the bottom of the alchemy furnace, there were 8 round pills. 4 of them were clearly high-grade pills with a round luster. The other 4 were slightly lacking in luster and were middle grade. Everyone was stunned. It was actually successfully refined? How was this possible? Didn't they say that it was a big taboo to open the lid of the alchemy furnace halfway? Moreover, the little girl had added a section of fallen petals vine into it. How was it possible for it to reach an 80% pill refinement rate? And it was even of such high quality? After everyone recovered from their shock, they felt a little embarrassed. After all, each and every one of them had been acting like garlic for half a day just now, but now they were slapped in the face. The first elder coughed twice. Feng Chao girl, refine another batch of level 10 bone grafting pills. Yun Chujio nodded. After washing the pill refining furnace, she began to refine the bone grafting pills step by step. This fellow had gained experience this time, so he didn't need to adjust it halfway. Directly at the beginning of the refinement, she deliberately increased the temperature a little. This way, the pill success rate and the quality of the pill would be reduced. Everyone smelled a burnt smell. A thought flashed through their minds at the same time. It seemed that this little girl had hit the nail on the head. A blind cat met a dead rat. This time her true colors were revealed. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Mo Shouting comforted himself. No matter what, he had done it just now. So what if he did it this time? It wasn't too embarrassing. Mo Xiaoquan and Mo Xiaoan relaxed a little. Both Mo Xiaoquan and Mo Xiaoan did not want Yun Chujio to really enter the first elder's eyes. The reason was obvious. If the first elder really personally taught Yun Chujio how to refine pills, what would the others think? That would make the younger generation of the family appear to be too useless and incompetent. The first elder did not have many thoughts. He only wanted to verify whether Yun Chujio had the talent to refine pills. As for whether or not he wanted to teach her how to refine pills, that was not something he had to consider now. After 15 minutes, the medicinal fragrance began to spread out from the pill furnace, covering up the burning smell at the beginning. Everyone was puzzled. It was clearly the burning smell from before. How could the medicinal fragrance still come out? After a while, Yun Chujio finished the pill refinement. She sighed and said, I did not control the fire well before. I reckon that the pill success rate and quality won't be too good. Feng Chao girl, open the lid of the pill refining furnace first. The great elder had learned his lesson this time. It was better not to make a conclusion for now. If he was slapped in the face again, there would be no place to put his old face. Yun Chujio nodded and obediently opened the lid of the pill refining furnace. Then she heard a few gasps. How is this possible? Didn't you just refine it into paste? Why is there still an 80% success rate? Moreover, there are 3 high-grade pills. Emo Xiaoan asked in disbelief. Not to mention him, even the great elder was puzzled. According to common sense, if the fire was not properly controlled at the beginning, then it would be pretty good if this cauldron of pills could achieve a 60% success rate, not to mention such a high-grade pill. How did this little girl do it? The great elder directly asked the question. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. Great elder, what you said is too profound. I don't really understand. I refined it based on intuition. The great elder's heart shook. Intuition? Could it be that this little girl was born to be an alchemist? Speaking of which, if it wasn't for her great talent in alchemy, a little girl from a low-level continent like her would never be able to reach the level of a 10th-rank alchemist no matter what. Although many thoughts surged in the great elder's heart for a moment, there was no change on his face. He praised, it seems that Feng Chao isn't bluffing. She is indeed a level 10 alchemist. As expected of our Mo clan's blood and bone. Tianzi is indeed extraordinary. The great elder's heart moved when he said this. Tianzi? This little girl heard that she had a heavenly thunder spirit root. That was right. It was probably because she had a heavenly thunder spirit root that she had a certain talent in alchemy. Pandian Zero Vel. Calm, however, when he remembered that Yun Chujio had a heavenly thunder spirit root, the Grand Elder's thoughts became a little more complicated. The heavenly thunder spirit root was something that the Tiandao could not tolerate. Sooner or later it would be wiped out by the Tiandao. What a pity. Yun Chujio humbly said a few words. She tactfully did not mention the words of letting the Grand Elder teach her alchemy. There were some things that could not be rushed. Take your time. There was no rush. The Great Elder encouraged Yun Chujio a few more words. Then for the first time he took out an alchemy furnace and said to Yun Chujio, Feng Chao girl, I saw that the alchemy furnace you used just now was too low grade. This Tao Tai pattern alchemy furnace was used by me in the past. You can take it and use it. Thank you, great master. This is really great. In the future when I see an alchemy furnace, it will be as if I heard your teachings with my own ears. I will definitely continue to work hard, Yun Chujio said with a face full of gratitude. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. The corners of Mo Xiaoting's eyes twitched. Fuck, isn't your flattery a little too obvious? But to his surprise, the first elder seemed to be enjoying it. He laughed, you little girl, you sure have a sweet mouth. Go back and train hard. Yun Chujio nodded obediently and did not continue to flatter him. After all, flattery was a skill and flattery was bad for the legs, so it was more or less enough. Everyone returned to the study room and exchanged a few pleasantries. The first elder picked up his teacup and everyone tactfully stood up to leave. Mo Xiaoquan originally wanted to keep Mo Xiaoting for lunch, but seeing that Mo Xiaoting insisted on leaving, he had no choice but to escort the 3 of them out of the mansion. Mo Xiaoquan turned around and returned to the first elder's courtyard. At this time the first elder was hunched and looked completely different from before. Xiaoquan, have they all left? Mo Xiaoquan nodded, then asked worriedly, Father, are you all right? You shouldn't have taken that tiger and wolf medicine. I'll just find an excuse to prevent them from coming to see you. Sai, my body can't hold on for much longer anyway. The 5th elder is eyeing me like a tiger and those few aren't well behaved either. If I don't show up, they'll definitely come over to probe me endlessly. Others may think that the great patriarch of the Mo family is very impressive, but in reality, Leng Yuan knows his own limits. When a disaster strikes, it is the beginning of the destruction of a family. We absolutely cannot allow such a situation to happen. When the day comes when I am about to fail, I will bring those 4 troublemakers along with me. I will not leave any trouble for you. Although Mo Xiaoquan's heart was relieved, he felt a slight chill on his back. His expression was naturally a little unnatural. Pandan Zero Val. C0M, the great elder, was well versed in the ways of the world and naturally understood what he was thinking. He snorted coldly, do you think that I am too ruthless and merciless? You You are good in every way, but you are too indecisive. Yes, I admit that it is indeed a little too ruthless to kill them all. However, as long as I am dead, if the 4 of them are still alive, they will definitely force you to give up the position of family head. When that time comes, the Mo family will be in a bloodbath. When that time comes, it won't be a matter of 4 people dying. It's very likely that the Mo family will be replaced by someone and uprooted. Mo Xiaoquan's face revealed a look of shame. Father, your son has realized his mistake. In the end, it's still because your son's ability isn't enough. There's no way to convince the other 4 chambers and make you worry. The great elder sighed. I've seen your hard work. It's just that with your character your progress is limited. Yonghui and Junkun are also more than capable. If they don't develop enough, they might not be as good as you in the future. Therefore, I have to settle those 4 troublemakers. Otherwise, you won't be able to deal with them in the future. Mo Xiaoquan's face was filled with shame when he heard the great elder's words. He knew that what the great elder said was the truth. Once the great elder died, the other 4 branches would have the support of the elders in the family to force them out of the palace. At that time, the Mo family would definitely fall into chaos. The father and son were silent for a moment. Mo Xiaoquan had nothing to say and wanted to find something to talk about. He wanted to adjust the atmosphere and asked, Father, what do you think of Xiao Ting and Fong Chao girl? Xiao Ting people are very shrewd, but their horizons are limited. As for that Fong Chao girl, she has somewhat exceeded my expectations. According to the information you gathered, the matter of the meeting gift was probably designed by this little girl alone. In addition to the words she said at the wedding banquet, this little girl is very intelligent and is quite scheming, the first elder said thoughtfully. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. Father, could she be the one who planned the meeting gift? Can't be, right? Where did a little girl like her get the guts? If Shaoan knew about it, he would definitely not let her off easily. Mo Xiaoquan said in disapproval. The first elder could not help but sigh. Look, even when I said that it was her who did it, you didn't believe it. Do you think Shaoan would think that it was her who did it? This little girl is bold and careful. If it was a boy, we could really nurture him. Unfortunately, it's a girl and she has a heavenly thunder spirit root. We can only give up. Father, even if the meeting gift was designed by her, it's just a small trick. How is it worthy of your praise? If the meeting gift is a small trick, then what she said at Junkin's wedding banquet shows that this little girl has a world within her. Moreover, she also has the talent of alchemy and business. She is really a good seedling. Unfortunately, she is not a boy and she has the heavenly thunder spirit root that the heavenly Tao does not allow. The great elder shook his head regretfully. However, Mo Xiaoquan felt that the great elder was exaggerating a little. She is just a slightly smarter little girl. She is not as amazing as the great elder said. Fortunately, she is a little girl. Otherwise, she might even threaten Jun Kun's position. Yun Chujio, who was being discussed by the 2, had just returned to the 5th house of the Mo family. She was going to visit the 2nd house of the Mo family after lunch. Mo Shouting was naturally happy. He never thought that Fong Chao would actually know how to refine pills. To be able to refine level 10 pills at such a young age was definitely one of the best in the Western continent. After returning home, he was going to train her well. Perhaps the Mo family would produce a high-level alchemist in the future. Although Mo Xiaoan did not show it on his face, he was feeling depressed. He originally thought that the first elder was about to die, but he did not expect him to be so energetic and disappointed. Mo Xiaoan took the time to meet with the 5th elder and explained the situation to him. The 5th elder was also disappointed, but there was nothing he could do. He couldn't possibly send someone to kill the 1st elder, right? Besides, he couldn't kill the 1st elder even if he wanted to. Not only did the 1st elder have a high level of spiritual energy, but the building was also heavily guarded. There was no chance for him to make a move. In the afternoon, Mo Xiaoan wasn't in the mood to accompany Mo Shouting to the 2nd branch. So he asked his eldest son Mo Yongfei to accompany him. Yun Chujio couldn't help but wonder why the Mo family had rules when it came to names. For example, Mo Xiaoquan, Mo Shouting, Mo Fongjiao and Mo Fongqin. Why didn't Mo Qing use the word Yong in their names? This guy couldn't take it anymore. Before Mo Yongfei arrived, he had already asked his question. Mo Xiaoting's expression was a little unnatural as he explained the situation briefly. It turned out when Mo Xiaoting's father was still alive, there was a period when he didn't get along well with the Mo family. But the Mo family was too powerful, so he didn't dare to do anything. So when he gave his 3 grandsons names, he erased the word Yong. In reality, this was a form of self-deception. The family tree had the word Yong on it. On the side of the family there was Mo Yongping, Mo Yongqing and Mo Yongchang. The corner of Yun Chujia's eyes twitched. This great-grandfather was indeed interesting. Unfortunately, he died early and wasn't fated to meet. After a while Mo Yongfei arrived. His attitude was quite good. It was likely that Mo Xiaoan had instructed him. Soon the 3 of them arrived at the Mo family's second son. Although the Mo family's second son had a good attitude, he wasn't as warm as the eldest son. Even when Mo Xiaoting asked to meet the second elder, Mo Xiaofu found an excuse to reject him. They had already given him their gifts, which were almost the same as the 5th son's. Yun Chujio had also made a small fortune, so she was in a good mood. Some people couldn't bear to see Yun Chujio in a good mood. While everyone was drinking tea and chatting, Mo Fengzhu smiled and said, "Sister Fengchao, what you said at the wedding banquet really touched me deeply. I think you are also a talented person. Qi, calligraphy and painting. I wonder if sister is good at them or what kind. Why don't you show us what you're good at? I'll be an eye-opener for my sister." Mo Fengzhu said this because she knew a lot about these things. She had been humiliated by Yun Chujio at the wedding banquet and wanted to get back at her. Moreover, she felt that Yun Chujio's personality was too impetuous and didn't seem to be talented. What she said before was just a blind cat hitting a dead mouse. Hearing Mo Fengzhu's question, everyone's attention turned to Yun Chujio. Mo Xiaoting furrowed his brows. The little girl's handwriting was like a dog's crawl. He had never heard her play the zither before. Moreover, with her personality, playing chess was even worse. Unless she was drawing, it wasn't going to be easy. Mo Fengzhu looked at Mo Xiaoting's expression and felt even more confident. It looked like Mo Fengzhu was an ignorant idiot. Yun Chujio smiled. "Sister Fengzhu, I know everything about zither, chess, calligraphy and painting, but this doesn't reflect my talent. How about this? If I write a word, you will definitely mispronounce it." "Sister Fengzhu, you must be joking. Although I'm not talented, I still know all the words." Mo Fengzhu was so angry that she was about to laugh. She had started reading at the age of 3, how could there be words that she did not know? "Since that's the case, shall we make a bet? If you mispronounce the words that I wrote, Sister Fengzhu will lose 100,000 high-grade spirit stones to me. If you don't mispronounce the words, then I will lose 100,000 high-grade spirit stones to you. Sister Fengzhu, do you dare to make a bet with me?" Yun Chujio said with a slightly provocative tone. Since she had nothing to do, torturing the white lotus flower to pass the time was not a bad idea. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Mo Fengzhu certainly would not admit defeat. "Alright, it's a deal. You can write it. However, we can agree that it can't be ancient characters or foreign characters." "Of course." Immediately, a servant carried a small square table and prepared a brush, ink, paper and inkstone. Yun Chujio walked up to her, picked up a pen and scribbled a word. When Mo Fengzhu saw that word, she almost fainted from anger. You're cheating. What you wrote was wrong, of course, no matter how I read it, it was wrong." Mo Fengzhu almost shouted out. Only now did she understand that Yun Chujio was playing a trick on her. Yun Chujio said with an aggrieved expression, "Sister Fengzhu, I was just making a harmless joke. Why are you so anxious?" "In that case, I don't want your 100,000 high-grade spirit stones anymore. Just pretend that I didn't say anything." Mo Fengzhu's face flushed red. Yun Chujio's words made her seem like she was too narrow-minded to make a joke, and she was even more reluctant to part with 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. She gritted her teeth in anger and said, "Humph. Although you won by means, I'm willing to admit defeat. Isn't it just 100,000 high-grade spirit stones? What's so great about it?" Yun Chujio naturally would not push the spirit stones that were delivered to her door out. She smiled and said, "Since Sister Fengzhu insists on giving it to me, then I'll shamelessly accept it. Thank you, Sister Fengzhi. Mo Fengzhu glared at her. She wasn't in the mood to let Yun Chujio perform any zither, chess, calligraphy or painting. She wanted to strangle her on the spot. With this incident, the atmosphere in the room became even more awkward. Mo Shouting felt like he was sitting on pins and needles as he quickly stood up and left. This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. After returning to room 5, Mo Shouting called Yun Chujio into the study room in his courtyard and closed the door. He lowered his voice and said, Feng Chao, why did you offend Feng Zhu of the second wife? Although only room 5 has business relations with us, it's not good to upset the second wife. Grandfather, Mo Fengzhu doesn't like me to begin with. She was the one who instigated Mo Fengjiao to target me at the wedding banquet. If I wasn't smart, Mo Fengjiao might have beaten me up. Besides, grandfather, do you think that even if we fawn over the other branches, they will treat us like human beings? Yun Chujio sneered. Although Mo Shouting did not think that Yun Chujio's words were nice, he had to admit that Yun Chujio's words made sense. Even after the incident with the gifts had passed, the attitude of the family had improved. However, the disdain and contempt in his eyes were not hidden at all. His heart was filled with anxiety. Feng Chao, even if what you said makes sense, what can we do? Our small arms can't beat our thighs. Let's just hold on for a while longer and go back, Mo Shouting sighed. No, grandfather, we now have a chance. A great opportunity to let the Mo family return to the eastern continent. Yun Chujio's eyes flashed with a bright light. Mo Shouting was pleasantly surprised. Feng Chao, aren't you trying to coax grandfather? Is there really a way for the Mo family to return to the eastern continent? Yun Chujio nodded and peeked through the door. Chun Shao was following her instructions and was talking to the two maids in the courtyard. She then lowered her voice and said, Grandfather, if everything goes according to plan, it will be extremely difficult for the Mo family to return to the eastern continent. Firstly, the Mo family doesn't like us, and secondly, they want us to work for them in the western continent. So they won't allow us to join their family. So we can only take a risk and take a gamble. Mo Shouting nodded his head. Yun Chujio's words made sense. He could tell that the Mo family had no intention of letting them join their family. Feng Chao, what's the solution? Don't keep us guessing. Yun Chujio did not answer but instead asked, Grandfather, why do you think Mo Xiaoan followed us to the main house? Why didn't he accompany us to the second house in the afternoon? Mo Shouting was stunned. Didn't he say that he had something to deal with in the afternoon? PND Yun Chujio smiled. Grandfather, do you believe him? This is just an excuse. Haven't you noticed that Mo Xiaoan has been preoccupied ever since he returned from the main house? Mo Shouting did not pay much attention at first, but after hearing what Yun Chujio said, he thought about it and realized that it was true. When he left, Mo Xiaoan was still talking and laughing, but when he returned he was obviously much quieter. After hearing what you said, it's true. But what does this have to do with us? Did we upset him in some way? Mo Shouting still did not understand what Yun Chujio was trying to say. Grandfather, if you look closely, you will realize that Mo Xiaoan's mood was bad the moment he saw the first elder. What do you think this is about? Mo Shouting was stunned for a moment before his mouth fell open. He was a wily old fox, so he was well aware of the power struggle between families. He then recalled that Mo Xiaoan had once asked Mo Xiaoquan if there was something wrong with the first elder's body and immediately understood. Are you saying that Mo Xiaoan was disappointed when he found out that there was nothing wrong with the first elder's body? This chapter is a preview. If you want to see a faster and more up-to-date chapter, please visit for more content. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.